of my friends and educate them and hang out and all that. Just because they need that guidance, they need help.
And then you should
Good
join some of
stuff,
our
Gabby.
club, some of our rooms here, Gabi. We run some
Yeah,
rooms on inclusion, on access to education. So it would be awesome to have you on stage.
yeah, it's interesting because yesterday, you guys know I work for the feds, and so yesterday. I had to argue at work about a rule that they were trying to do. They were like, well, the rule, and I'm just being honest, I probably shouldn't be telling you guys this. And the rule that they were going to do was for San Antonio, Texas. And it basically would have required I&M, which is emissions and inspections, which is a cost that they say 15% of the population in San Antonio is poor. And so I'm like, no, you guys aren't going to do this rule until you have financial equity for the poor people. That's not right. And they're like, no, we need to da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, I'm no longer going to let this agency create regulations that adversely impacts the marginalized community. And that's been my stance. And so I haven't quit yet. And they can't fire me because I'm actually vice president of a union too. And the President Biden just did the union. I watched politics and figured out how to make myself stronger. And so I'm trying to make a change so we the people, so the people in America don't waste their money, don't this and like you guys don't even know so many regulations are built off job security versus actual science and facts. I used to be that woman that sat in a room with a table of men that did not look like me, and because they did not look like me, they thought they were smarter. They did everything went off what they said, and all it was job security. It's just like Congress when you look at them and you wonder like why they're all multimillionaires. And so now that I've sat and observed it for years and I know the truth, now I'm like, if you guys bother me, I'm going to CNN or I'm going to Fox News.
But now you're here with tech news. Who needs Fox
Yeah,
when you got tech news, baby? That's
I
how we
know.
do.
So when I'm ready to sound off, like literally, I have a case against the feds right now, and we have
Oh, oh.
ADR on the 21st of June. So
Mm.
depending on how they treat me there, will determine their fate.
Oh
Hold on.
my.
I have a sound clip for
Strong,
that, by the
Gabby.
way. I haven't used
Strong,
the sound
Gabby.
clip in a while. Where did it
I was
go?
waiting for this.
Here we go.
Don't mess with Gabby.
Let's get ready to
Fat ass, Gabby.
Gabby's a badass, y'all.
On the left corner.
But the
Weighing
thing
in
is, like, no,
at
that's true. But the thing is,
100
like,
kilograms. Yeah.
when you start like contesting them with facts and telling them that they're wrong for what they've been doing, because a lot of these people, that's their career, and they got kids and they've been putting their kids to college off of it, and you realize that they've been doing things for job security versus the greater good of the people that they're regulating. At one point, when they try to intimidate you or retaliate on you and you realize that your life is in jeopardy, you're either lost. You have two choices, either to flight or to fight, right? And I could have left, but I decided I'm gonna stay and fight. They can't stop me. I'm fearless now.
Sounds like a beginning of a Hollywood movie right there. That sounds like the classic Hollywood hero journey.
Isn't it Netflix nowadays?
Yeah, but I mean, it's all the Hollywood classic narratives.
The Holly
The
Flicks.
the hero's journey. Um, Keep us updated, Gab. If you're gonna break that news, you could take it to Fox, you could take it to NBC, or you could bring it right here to Tech News Around the World. We will break that news.
I know, and you guys have been very supportive of me, so I will let you guys know first.
Boom,
The day
exclusive.
they're counting
Boom.
their days. I'll give it like yesterday. We had an all hands meeting
Mm-hmm.
where a government official that works for my agency under the Trump administration was moved, right? So he decided to come to my office and start off his conversation with, I'm an immigrant and this Republican did this to me. I went and sent an automatic message to them like, this is a Hatch Act violation. He's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to come, like when you work for the feds, you're not allowed to express a preference to any political side. And he was doing it, and he's a
Mm.
someone high up. So, and I noticed it. And when it was time for them to take questions after he spoke, they conveniently didn't take my question.
they play games over there. That was some of the headlines we covered here in the last meeting about 6 hours ago when we met previously. We covered there was some crazy games going on in the U.S. political game, and we'll touch on it again here in just a minute. But let's get
And I'll
into
tell
it.
you his name, Christopher Guntler. If you Google him, Google his name, and then Google Republican hearing, and you'll see why he's so mad trying to advocate for the Democrats internally, which is completely wrong.
She's got the receipts, y'all. She's gonna bring it. Don't mess with Gabby. Welcome back to Tech News Around the World, everybody. Rule number 1: don't mess with Gabby. That's rule number 2: don't mess with Gabby. That's rule. It's very easy. It's rules number 1 and number 2, and number 3 is don't mess with Gabby. And because she's got the receipts and she's not afraid to show them. But when she does, she gave us the exclusive. It's going to be interesting. And there's a whole bunch of political tech news, which is why we love partnering with our friend Justin, who does the Media and Politics 101 show, which is running a little bit long today because Faraz here on stage brought in a very honorable guest into Justin's show, which was an ambassador to the UN, if I remember correctly. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up, this gentleman's title, so we get this correct here. This is the Ambassador Malik Nadim.
Yeah, because Secretary General is only one, usually.
Yeah, Secretary General and Ambassador to UN International Human Rights Commission.
Tyler.
And, yes.
Oh, that's a very strong. That's, by the way, it's a very powerful UN agency here in Geneva, human rights, and then they can really shake up a country in politics. This is when they show up and have a conversation about what's going on in a country. This is really amazing.
Tyler, this is Jörg, and I would like to chime in. And Gabby, I do love that you love German cars as well. I just wanted to give a heads up. We do have elections in September, and the Green Party will become more powerful here, and they will implement speed limits. They don't frame it like this. They frame it like a protection measure. Yeah, and so when anybody on this globe would love once in their lifetime to get a unlimited experience riding a Porsche or whatever, a good car, Mercedes also, and others are fast. You can go like 250 kilometers or even faster. I would recommend to get this shit organized now because the world will miss it. Sorry for chiming in. Yeah,
that's
okay,
all right.
for all the car lovers.
Well, hopefully these new Teslas that were just hyped up in the past 24 hours. There was a very big Tesla live stream event with Mr. Elon Musk about the new Tesla S Plaid Edition, which goes 0 to 60 miles an hour in just under 2 seconds, which makes it faster than free falling. For those rides that you can go to at your local amusement park that lift you up in the air and then drop you, it actually accelerates faster than that. To give you an idea, and which is truly hair-raising and even potentially brain-damaging. And that's not even a joke. You could actually injure yourself accelerating that quickly. It borders on needing health insurance in addition to car insurance. So we will get into that story a little bit. I just wanted to cover really quickly all of the headlines that we covered in the previous session about 7 hours ago. And we'll go through these as quickly as we can. There was a whole bunch of fantastic articles that we shared. First, Monica found an article in India that the Indian government is surveilling popular social audio app called Clubhouse, something like Clubhouse. You guys
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Me neither. But apparently the Indian government has their surveillance agencies and intelligence agencies all up in this interesting app that I can't wait to try out. Because they're very curious about what people are saying, just like they are very careful of what people are saying on Twitter and on their other social media apps. And it will be very interesting to see how that develops. And then our friend Johan on stage. Are you on stage right now, Johan? You just sent me a really interesting DM. Is he here?
Yes.
Yeah. You. This is quite interesting. that there's a room. Is this room happening right now?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a few minutes ago.
Okay, so this gentleman named Adam Cox has a club called Software Engineering, and the name of the room is crowdsource open source clubhouse platform question mark, meaning we can build this thing over from scratch in a total open source crowdsourced way where it would not be controlled by a company, but open source crowdsource has advantages and private companies have advantages, but it's an interesting doing, and he's such I think, Johan, you're of the mind that if anyone's going to do this, Adam is an interesting person to attempt this. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is behind a lot of fun things that have been organized before.
Hey,
There's
just so you guys know, there's already one created. It's called Jam Cloud.
There's also similar news that was breaking today that I need to find, that Jack Dorsey did a really interesting tweet, and somebody had asked him, why don't you basically get Twitter onto the Lightning Network, kind of make a decentralized Twitter. And he said he responded, this is just a few hours ago, he said it's only a matter of time. And that has huge implications, actually.
Well, I wish Jack would spend more than 10% of his time on Twitter versus Square, where he's clearly has like his separate family over there as co-CEO. Doesn't really invest the time he needs to on Twitter, I think.
That you're not the only person to say that. However, it is the blockchain and Bitcoin team that he's referring to that would build this are actually originally kind of brought in as part of the Square team, and now they kind of are playing an interesting middle position between Square and Twitter now that he's kind of let the cat out of the bag, that he has ambitions, and it's only a matter of time before Twitter itself becomes decentralized. And why is that so fantastically wild? Because all of these articles that we read here for the past several days, that Twitter versus India and Russia versus or Russia versus Twitter, India versus Twitter, Donald Trump versus Twitter, etc., etc., etc. Well, basically India and Russia and Donald Trump are, anyone who doesn't like Nigeria just shut down Twitter, for example. Let's focus on that example. So when these countries threaten Twitter or even do shut down Twitter, as Nigeria is in the process of doing, that's because Twitter is centralized and it's on particular computers that can be apprehended and shut down. And you can beat the server with a baseball bat and stop the service, essentially. Decentralized Twitter is a totally different architecture where it's running on thousands of computers all over the world, and hence you can't shut it down. So in the event that Nigeria tries to shut down Twitter, or India tells Twitter, you need to remove these tweets, or when Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump says, you need to do this and remove these accounts and remove these tweets, or else Jack Dorsey will say, go fuck yourself. Because there's not a damn thing they can do about it once it's decentralized.
There's another flip side to that too.
Go ahead.
One thing that Jack Dorsey has not been able to control is the staff that work at Twitter around the world. They've been the reason for censorship when someone's account gets suspended, and they're causing a lot of chaos. That's why Florida in the United States created that bill that if a big tech company suspends someone for 14 days or more, they will be fined up to $250,000. And that's why decentralization is taking away human error, essentially. But
Right.
that's probably, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But what Twitter needs is leadership, and it has a part-time CEO who's more interested in Bitcoin and fintech and finance than social media. He's just checked out. I mean, he's not running the company like a CEO should. And that's outrageous for shareholders, investors, for stakeholders, even for Twitter users. I mean, there's just a complete void at the top at Twitter, sadly.
It might just end up being the best thing that ever happened to Twitter, though, if he carries on down this path. One could argue.
Well, there's also the interesting
If
point.
he can bring his enthusiasm back to Twitter.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so check this out. So when Gabby and Ame were at that Bitcoin 2021 conference in Miami a few days ago, Jack Dorsey was on stage, and there was a lady in the front row who went a bit ballistic and said, you're meddling with elections, and you're silencing, and kind of making this point about deplatforming and etc. And he very calmly, and I said in this room, you remember this? I said he sat there incredibly calmly and said, "Let's talk about it. We can talk about it. Let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. We can talk about it." As if he was very happy to engage on this topic. And now we know why. Because he's at the Bitcoin 2021 conference, and he knows he's got the ace in his pocket, which is, listen, lady, we're going to decentralize this bitch. And then his biggest headache, Jack Dorsey's biggest headache by far, are these governments like Putin, like Modi, like Trump, pushing him around, telling him what to do, all this crazy game of censorship and moderation, endless headaches, which he wants nothing of. And once it's decentralized, poof, all those headaches are gone for him in a way.
So
It'll be, yeah.
Well, I
can I,
think
can I,
his headache is his shareholders who aren't getting the value out of Twitter that should be, and so his headache is short, medium term. He just doesn't want to run Twitter. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He likes dabbling in Bitcoin and talking about the future and being a futurist, but he's not a hands-on CEO. I mean, just look at the mess that is Twitter Spaces. I mean, the thing doesn't work, and here we are on Clubhouse when we all should be on Twitter. So it's really, for me, a
Evan, has
leadership
he got an
issue.
operating team there? I just don't know.
Of,
Does he
of
have an
course he does,
operating
but
team
he
that
has an
does?
operating team whose churn and turnover is off the charts. I mean,
And
just
you
look at
you know why
LinkedIn.
that it is? Because they forced diversity in Twitter. You could Google this. So they tried to be the standard, the model company to show what like a company that has diversity. They forced it really hard, and it's done nothing but cause chaos within. Disagreements. People from different cultures don't see things the same way, don't interpret the same words the same way, and they've been back. I'm on Twitter Spaces. And I know, like Maya G. Patterson is the black woman that they say created Twitter Spaces, and she's a developer, but she might not be like the best one. And so they sold that story, and then they used Periscope, the Periscope platform and server, to do Twitter Spaces. And if anybody knows anything about Periscope, is it ended up in a catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've shut down products over the years. Just read a good book called Hatching Twitter about the history of Twitter. And it's like a novel. I mean, you've had like CEOs Ev, and then Jack, and then Biz, and then and they've constantly churned like who runs the place. I mean, it's such a shame because it's such an amazing like platform. It has so much potential, but it's just being run abysmally, in
can
my
I
opinion.
Caleb,
play
may I
devil's
ask a
advocate?
question?
Can I play a little devil's advocate here? Is I understand that we're talking about this as a kind of idea from a management perspective, but and I'm by no means anti crypto. I'm a huge fanboy of crypto and blockchain, but I think that moving Twitter onto a decentralized platform or blockchain, especially if they try to do it onto Bitcoin, would be the death of Twitter. And I mean, I don't know how you avoid just complete chaos, enormous noise. Do people have to pay satoshis just to get their tweets visible? I mean, I don't understand how.
For this, please. I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how you could possibly the Bitcoin blockchain can't possibly process enough of the doesn't have the speed to process all of the transactions. You'd have to do it on a layer two. It just
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a horrible idea. I don't understand why people think this is going to be a positive. I think the idea of this no filter decentralization Twitter sounds great, but I don't understand how in actuality that would be anything but this enormous noise machine that would become useless immediately.
Great point.
I agree with Eugene.
Thank you.
An
Can I
immutable
just
Twitter
can I
is a
can I just
sorry. Go
Ben?
ahead.
Can I say something?
1 second, Ben.
Thank
Go
you
ahead,
very
Ross.
much. Thank you. Thanks. May, Gabby, can you guys help me put this thesis together? I'm just going to do it very quickly. And I was having a chat with Cal about this, I think, 2 nights ago. My feeling here, and it's just a feeling, it's just a hunch, and I might be completely wrong, but the way that content is being produced, whether it be Twitter Spaces, whether it be Clubhouse, if you look at it, and let's just forget the employees for a second, let's forget all of the other issues that these two apps may have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The way that these are being produced, if you look at, for example, tech news around the world on Clubhouse today, and if you look at it on Twitter Spaces 5 years from today, at some point, in my humble opinion, what is going to end up happening is decentralized blockchain is going to come into play here, where you may have certain clubs which these spaces might be using to attract a huge amount of following into their particular platforms. And what would happen is, God forbid, if at that point tech news around the world ended up being and they ended up losing tech news around the world, or another club that was number one, or something like that, it could hurt the platform. Then they would need to ensure that tech news around the world needed to stay on that platform. How would they ensure that? In my humble opinion, is to pull up some sort of a mechanism which, for those in the audience that are not of the crypto world, what would happen is you would have some form of a decentralized blockchain mechanism come in, where essentially clubs like this, or clubs like others that would be in the top 10, would have the opportunity to then go out and perhaps, in non-crypto terms, IPO themselves, where moderators or various members of the clubs would get coins, or let's say shares in that particular club based on the blockchain protocol or the infrastructure that that particular club is built on, etc., etc. Ame, Gabby, if you guys have
Hey,
any comments to add
Faraz.
upon,
You
You're
would
had a
love it.
really
Thank you.
valid point for us. The part of it that decentralized, I mean, even in the study that I've been taking for a few years now, there's going to be obviously decentralized and centralized components involved in the entire process, because it's too cumbersome to move that whole big ship all at once. Of course, there are those individuals that will align towards one particular blockchain or another. But the reality is that it'll probably be a use case that'll be something that'll show up in various locations. Sorry, the dog's barking. But for us, we chatted about this before as well. I think it's really just about figuring out what the problem is to be solved, and whether or not it will require a decentralized or centralized solution. And I think that's why so many of these use cases are coming out right now, because they all don't need to be decentralized. For example, when you have artwork and the heavy intensity of those files, they have to be on a server that can handle it. That part of an artistic creation cannot be decentralized, because it'll tax the system. Even when I was working at Fox, it was really hard to hold those optical files on anything decentralized. So there will be a combination of decentralized and centralized. It just will be where it will show up. And tokenizations, like you just described, Faraz, are already happening. However, as we spoke of in the morning edition, there could be a massive clusterfuck of administration if the Europe, for example, starts doing what you've seen. That we're just
Sure,
waiting to see
sure.
whether other countries
So,
are going to
so
come down and do
can
it.
can I
there's an
speak?
important thing here
This is
though, that
Gabby.
if something is not decentralized, then it is centralized. And if it is centralized, you have to trust that central authority, and then you've
Correct.
just made no progress
So
whatsoever. If the world went to a decentralized Twitter that is immutable, then all the stupid shit all these people have said in the past that has now been banned, which is still on the internet anyway, because you can just go to the Internet History Machine or a whole bunch of places and find out what everything that Donald
Very
Trump's ever
valid, Ben.
said or whatever.
Very valid.
You know, it's all there anyway. It would just be that the argument could be laid there in the annals of history for everybody to examine and see what was said, and arguably more importantly than what was the stupid thing that was said, all of the responses and the thought out responses to that would also be set there in stone and left for everybody to inspect over history. So somebody can come up and say whatever they want, as stupid, racist, sexist as they like, and then the response, the response from the world uh, will show what that actually, well, will be there forever,
so
basically. So the
so
response will weight to the original thing and either kind of prove or disprove it. So that's the way I would see it. I'm in favour of anybody saying anything,
Correct.
and then
so
the response is also being immutable.
I just want to say you all are exactly correct. And we already have a test case of this. And it started off as bitclout.com being a scam, right? The media sold it as a scam.
It still is a scam.
Wait,
Yeah.
listen, you gonna let me finish, or you gonna let the media sell it to you? But they released an article on New Yorker yesterday, which basically, if you pay attention to the article, they did not mention the word decentralized, because it's hard to do something decentralized when the governments are not for it. And so what bitclout.com is going to do is they're going to do exactly what Faraz was talking about in theory. And it's okay, because you need a test run. There's risk in being the first one out. And no one's going to stop them but the government if they choose to. And so it's
Gabby,
really
you probably shouldn't keep talking about BitClout because you log in with your look at my Twitter. I just tweeted it. You log in with your seed phrase. This is not a good message to send anybody. This is just dangerous. You do not
Ben.
ever
Let
want
me
anybody
tell you something. Let me tell
entering
you
a
something,
seed
Ben.
phrase
Ben,
Ben,
into
can
the
you listen to
brother,
me for a second?
into the
Because you
internet.
always come hard there. But things are scams if you lose your money, right? If
Yeah,
you don't
yes.
lose
So
any
how,
money
Gabby,
on it,
how do you get your money out of BitClout? How do
Oh, I
you?
was waiting for the sound.
I know,
go
so was
back
I.
to
It's
the
On
very
the
money.
left
You
all
know
corner.
right
All
why?
then, let's hit it.
Well, I mean,
Ben, if
I'm
you
not
never
even.
put any money into it and you gained a bunch of money, like the kid, if you read the article, you've won. People in
Gabby,
Canada are
I have
withdrawing
put
their
money
money
into
and,
it.
and getting
I
crypto
have
with
put
it.
money into it specifically because I wanted to be scammed to feel what it's like. But can you get your money out of it? That's the question.
Some
No,
people
you can't.
have. Yes, they have. That's why
Ben,
I'm
This
here.
just go do some more
Guys,
research.
They
guys,
use
guys,
third-party
guys.
apps
Ben,
to turn
hear
the
me
money
out.
from.
There are some great virtual crypto social tokens emerging, and this is just an experiment. Check out if you
Yes.
really want to look at what someone is doing in the
Thank you, Evan.
social currency space. Check out
Exactly.
Rally.io.
Thanks, Evan.
Amazing community. Andreessen Horowitz backed. I have a coin. Everyone on stage should now go and apply for a coin. There'll be 100 million creator coins out there in a year or two, and you can put money in and get money out and reward and incentivize your
Mike, that's the
community.
one we were discussing the other
Tyler,
day, brother.
Yeah.
Tyler, are you happy
Yeah.
with people talking about Ponzi schemes here? So that's cool.
No, it's
No, I'm
it's
on Rally too.
Ben,
Check my
come on,
profile.
man.
I'm on Rally too, you guys. I'm on all of this. See,
Great.
the
Well,
key
yeah,
before you judge something is you do your investigation and you see if it works and you talk to people from other countries because
Rally definitely
Actually,
works,
but
and
that's really
they've got
interesting because
aces.
I'm in Europe and no one is even no one even wants to go towards BitClout or Rally. To be honest, Evan, there's a lot of skepticism, and the Europeans are definitely way pretty badass. After I tweeted the explanation what the Dutch government or the ministry realized about what was happening with the CBDCs. But the reality is, Evan and Gabby, is that they are social tokens, but not everyone in the space is a creator. And the challenge of being a creator is that most creators also are quite creative, so they look at things from a different set of lenses. And I think that's where I do support what Ben's saying, because I've been in Bitcoin and blockchain since 2011. And I'm a technologist and I've dug deeply into it. I go down these rabbit holes. But the fact that you cannot extract your money out of BitClout, I'm sorry. I've seen a lot of my friends
so
rug pulled. I would really
MA,
beg
in
to
certain jurisdictions you can.
So
yes, you
just
by
can. That's the
crypto,
thing.
there's
And the
one.
by crypto, in
in
crypto,
what
in
The way
Bitcoin.
to judge these things is to read the code base. You're going to say, "Oh, I can't read
Ben,
code."
until
Well,
3 years ago, you would have called
then
Bitcoin
don't
a
judge
scam,
me.
man.
Wait a second,
I
wait a second,
absolutely, but
wait,
I
wait. I want
hadn't
to
read.
ask
That's
Gabby
because I
something.
hadn't
Could I
read the
ask
code
Gabby
base.
something? Could I
one
ask Gabby
second.
something? Because
Let's go
let
in
me
a
ask
let's
Let the
make an
Gabby
ladies
order.
something.
speak. Let the
Let-
ladies
Yeah,
speak.
let me just ask Gabby something because you said something and I just have one question. Just everyone's saying that you can, in some jurisdictions you can withdraw your token, right? My question is very specific. Inside the BitClout platform, which I also too have signed up to test it, very similar to Ben, can you withdraw your Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address? Yes or no?
you can withdraw it to a wallet address and transfer it to Bitcoin.
Okay, but
And
you
one
can't. But
recent
that's it.
change
You
that
can't.
most people don't,
I'm
most one
sorry.
recent change with BitCloud that most people are not paying attention to is they kind of disassociated themselves with Bitcoin. Now you can buy BitCloud with USDA. That's a recent change that most people don't even know. And now, whatever you have in your wallet, if you click on your wallet and you click on, I want to withdraw this, it says, just put in this before this to take this money out. I
Okay,
noticed
so
it
Gabby,
just 2 days
okay,
ago.
great. So Gabby, what I'm hearing you say is that, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing you say is that now you could withdraw your BitClout. Let's just use it in terms that's there. You could withdraw that BitClout token to a stable coin like USDC or USDT Tether. I'm just using it because you said USDA, and I think it's USDC that you meant.
Yes, yes,
USDC.
yes. You're
Okay,
right.
got
I'm
it. No
sorry.
worries. No, it's okay. Don't apologize. I'm just want to make sure I understand it. So what they're doing is allowing you to, and they're disassociating themselves with Bitcoin, which is very interesting for me to hear that, which thank you for sharing. But now I would go to the second part of this question, which leaves me with that sort of X-Files music in my head. You're withdrawing your BitClout, taking it to USDC on an exchange, which is a stable coin, which means that exchange, that USDC will stay flat. which means it won't increase anymore, which makes sense. But then I would also say, why did they change it from Bitcoin? Because I think, with all due respect, I do really respect Ben's knowledge a lot. We might not always be like so on the same page with things, but I respect his knowledge a lot.
So
And this is
this
where
is
I
the
would say that they moved away from Bitcoin because it was decentralized and people are coming after the regulation. So if they
correct.
stayed in it, they could be busted, because if they
Correct.
stayed in it, they would go down the same rabbit hole as BitConnect, which entirely rug pulled so many people in California, including 3 of my friends that worked at Disney. So,
So this is the other thing. This is the other thing. You got to remember when we all speak that we're all in different countries that have different regulations.
true, but I'm from New
So
York, so I'm a
yeah,
U.S.
yeah. So
citizen living
so
abroad.
I'm telling you, like the people that rug pulled in America when it first started, they might be up under investigation. I've never rug pulled. But then again, you got to understand what's the definition of a rug pull. Is it that you told people to buy into your coin early and then you had it at a high founders percentage and then you took all the money out, right? But when I started BitClout, it was put in what you could lose, right? And a lot of
Correct.
people got tied into it because they started creating third-party apps. They started making promises, and they weren't even the developers on what the future of it would be. And so they oversold something they never even knew. And now they're salty, embarrassed because it's evolved. They even got mad when they
That
when
makes
they
sense. That
I
makes
need
disconnected
sense.
to let
Bitcoin.
me chime in a sec, guys.
Sure. I just want to acknowledge Gabby, because what Gabby's saying makes sense. Like, it makes sense. Her narrative on how she's explaining that they're disassociating themselves with what their perception and the judgment was against BitClout a few months ago. I'm just giving creds where creds are due.
So I've just logged into my BitClout account. I have a BitClout account for research purposes. I've done this both in the US, the UK, Australia. I've just done it in 3, 4 different countries via VPN using an incognito browser with no session. It's not remembering me. I know what I'm doing. Firstly, you have to log in using your seed phrase. That is not okay. It is not even an okay message to send to the public that you ever paste a seed phrase into the web. Doing that, you will have your money stolen. People have already put their Bitcoin seed phrases into BitClout by mistake and had their money stolen. That is not okay. Full
Ben, can
stop.
I tell you another recent change? They made it
When
so
I've
you don't
finished, I
have
don't
to
care.
log in
Yes,
just
you
with
can
your
also
seed
use
phrase.
Google. You can
Could we
also
Yes.
hear?
use
Could we
Google,
hear? Could we hear
but
him
you
first?
can,
Thanks.
but they are still allowing you to put your seed phrase. And people who do not understand what they are doing are putting their
What
Bitcoin
does
seed
that? What does
phrase
that
in
mean,
there.
Ben? What is C
It's
phrase?
an
Well,
it's a
it is
phishing.
it is everything, all access to your Bitcoin. So if you accidentally paste your Bitcoin seed phrase in there, I don't care about my BitClout seed phrase because BitClout is worthless to me. But if I accidentally paste my Bitcoin seed phrase in there, which is being done on a daily basis, if the
Which
creators,
probably one person over 1,000 do.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's enough because if 1 in 1,000 people do that by mistake, and if BitClout decide to use that information, they can take control of that person's Bitcoin. Not good, not okay, not a good message to send. Secondly, if you want to withdraw BitClout, the only way you can do it, I'm in the site right now, is to send BitClout. Means absolutely nothing. Enter username to pay, amount of BitClout to send. They're the questions you're asked. Yes, you can withdraw BitClout to BitClout. That means absolutely nothing. How do I get my money back? I put $50 of Bitcoin into my BitClout profile. I set up my creator code, token, hoping to be the next big thing on BitClout. How do I get my $50 back? At this point, the answer is in all of the countries I've just tested, you absolutely cannot get it back. Why was Elon Musk's coin originally at one point 100 and something thousand dollars, and then it was 100, and now it's 55? It's gone from $100,000 to $100 to $55,000. There's volatility, and then there's stupid. This thing is clearly not okay. So I think
So
we
this is the
probably should do
thing,
our
Ben.
research and not talk about it.
Ben,
Okay.
this is the thing. You put in $50 that if you started off with the message that everybody was told, which is put in what you could afford to gamble with, like when you play your kids play Fortnite, you pay for the game and they don't get their money back. They get the enjoyment on the platform, right? The other thing that I want to say is just like your seed phrase could be stolen on BitClout or whatever, it could be done with Bitcoin. So everything you're saying applies to Bitcoin too. So
What do you mean? What do you mean it could be done with Bitcoin, Gabby? No reputable Bitcoin system would ever ask you to paste a seed phrase. That is your private keys. That is
it
the entire
started off
access to
as a
all of your
seed
money.
phrase. It has evolved, Ben. You could create a
But it
new
should never
profile
have
and
been there.
disconnect it. Look,
Fortnite
listen,
is free.
listen, Ben. You could create a new profile right now and use your Google login and transfer all the money from your old profile to your new one and not be tracked and then be locked there. And then your whole argument right now is dead. But I'm
Not
Gabby and I'm done speaking.
not if that's the default use case for the default user. That's his main point. Of course, you could change
And the
it, but
people who have already had their Bitcoin stolen, of course, because of this, which we have to then mop up in Cafe Bitcoin. We have a whole bunch of us who have to sit there and mop up the consequences of schemes like
Ben,
this.
may I say something? May I say
Of course.
something? When Bitcoin first started off, do you think it hasn't evolved since then? Do you think it was perfect on exchanges the way that it is now and the way that you've gotten into it? Or it has evolved since?
It has evolved, but it's still completely true to its white paper, even
Actually,
all these
that
years later.
Ben, Faraz, that's interesting because if I could rephrase if I could see if I understand your question correctly, you said to Ben, you asked if Bitcoin has evolved, and I think the better question that I'm hearing that you may be wanting to ask is related to how people are navigating
Correct,
and
Amir.
using
Correct.
Bitcoin. Because I was given the ability to have 1,000 Bitcoin back in 2011 in a conference in Vegas for chiropractors, and I said no. Because I was like, what is this? No, I don't want it. They were giving it away. They weren't even selling it back then. So I think it's the
Sorry,
exchange.
you're correctly phrasing my question. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Amir.
Then Ben.
okay.
Yeah,
Moving
well,
on.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Next topic. The 30 minutes to discuss whether or not BitClout is decentralized Twitter is not the most intelligent use of anybody's time. Particularly the 10 people in this room who have any idea what you're talking about. But the bigger question is, of course, and the initial question is a decentralized Twitter, which we don't need to worry if
Tyler, just one
BitClout is.
last point for you. Just one last second for you. The reason that I brought this whole thing up is because it truly applies to the value of all of these clubs. Whether it happens decentralized or centralized or whatnot, my feeling is this is how these clubs are going to have mini IPOs in the future. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, my point is that if Twitter is going to decentralize, as Jack says it is, then it's very likely. He says it's only a matter of time. Those are very strong words. He's not the type to make statements casually.
Tyler,
So
he announced it. He announced it at the Bitcoin conference. He said
know.
it. It's Blue Sky.
Yeah,
That's
I
the name
know.
of it. It's Blue Sky. So
I'm
I'm
very
super
well aware.
excited.
Yeah,
I know you
so,
are, Tyler.
yeah, my point is that it's coming. He's going to do it. What BitClout is or what it does in the 30 minutes you guys spent arguing about it is a complete waste of everybody's time in this room because it doesn't matter. It's inconsequential because Twitter's going to do a decentralized Twitter. What BitClout is means nothing. We could talk about some dirty shoes you saw down by the river for 30 minutes. It's just as equally valid to the question of what a decentralized Twitter is going to be like. And nobody cares
Apologies.
what BitClout is or was or will be.
Literally.
It's not going to matter as soon as Twitter does decentralized Twitter. And I was getting DMs about what does the word decentralized mean, just so you all understand what the app, what my mom and everybody in the audience was wondering. What the hell does decentralized mean? All right. So which highlights the importance of Ben and Amay's rooms and why they start there. And so for those of you who are DMing me wondering what is decentralized, why are we talking about decentralized? It's a very important concept and it's not trivial. And it's perhaps one of the biggest issues in technology today and it's not just about Bitcoin. It's far bigger than that. It's the essence of power, and it's the essence of Twitter is controlled by a company. Your money is controlled by a government. Your ID is controlled by a government. There's lots of powers that control every aspect of your life, from your data to your ID to your money and everything else. And the promise and the excitement that you hear in everybody's voice when they talk about the blockchain and Bitcoin, that excitement is because of the promise of the initial promise of decentralized, which means it gets the power out of the hands of the few and into a much more radical new approach to controlling your finances and your identification and your data and everything else. And it's not corrupt. When done correctly, it's not corruptible. And so we could start doing elections in an incredibly perfectly foolproof sort of way. And God knows every country could benefit from that right about now. And it's truly remarkable. And that's why you hear people so excited. But what's happening is the initial promise of Bitcoin being decentralized is now being what we call bear hugged, and it's now being kind of tricked into being controlled by the old conventional powers like the banks and the governments. And that's upsetting to some. It's now caused a sort of friction, a schism between the people who want to keep things decentralized as it was originally intended, perhaps, some argue, and then this new kind of bear hugged version of Bitcoin that it plays friendly with the government so that it can be controlled. And that's why, by the way, in the past 48 hours, you have one country fully embracing Bitcoin 100%, making it its own currency. And in the past 2 hours, you have another country saying we need to ban, put everyone in jail who even touches this thing. And that's the headline I want to jump into right now, which May thankfully found, although not a coincidence because she's from the Netherlands. And Dutch official, here's the first headline of the day. Dutch officials call for complete ban on Bitcoin. The Netherlands, where May happens to live, must ban the mining, trading, and holding of Bitcoin because it doesn't meet any of the three functions of money and is handy for criminals, one Dutch official argued. While El Salvador adopts Bitcoin as legal tender, one Dutch official blasted the cryptocurrency, calling for an urgent blanket ban. Peter Hasekamp, director of the Dutch Bureau of Economic Analysis under the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy, published an essay entitled "The Netherlands Must Ban Bitcoin." In line with the essay's title, he lists a wide list of reasons why the Dutch government must enforce an immediate total ban on mining, trading, and holding of Bitcoin. That means everything. According to the official, this could cause the price to plummet because Bitcoin has no intrinsic value and is only valuable because others may accept it, etc. I'm going to tweet this out from the Tech News Twitter account so you can read it with your own beautiful eyes. And that you can find our Twitter account at TNATW, which are the first letters of Tech News Around the World, where we tweet every headline that we cover here. And not only that, but all the related headlines that everyone else in this room, all now 420 of us, are sharing to the Twitter account. And you can share a headline to this club by simply including our Twitter account as part of your tweet. So just include TNATW as part of your tweet. I'll see it. If it's relevant to our conversation, I'll retweet it. It enriches the conversation, and that's how we do it. But May, what are your thoughts on
Tyler,
the Netherlands banning Bitcoin?
I did one better for you. After I said that this afternoon around 12, when it came out, I asked a bunch of my Dutch friends that are also very active in the space, and a couple of colorful comments came forward. Let me try and paraphrase one of them. The man's an old goat is one. Number two is it's ridiculous because the people that are doing it have no clue even what they're talking about because they're just following a narrative because they don't even know what Bitcoin is and what it does, and they haven't even read the white paper, which I know Ben's channeling in my head right now. But it's also a narrative that I find really interesting because a month ago, the same country was also saying that they have no clue who are crypto investors in the country of Netherlands. And that's what I find fascinating because here is less than a month apart, two articles speaking of something that I find really fascinating because two of the things that the Dutch value very, very much, which I understand, and you were alluding to this, Tyler, is freedom and privacy. They are super, super vehemently protecting freedom and privacy. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting because no one's going to relinquish if they have anything. And there will be a cold day in hell that they will do that. And ING and ABN, ING is interesting because ING just opened up a blockchain division. ABN AMRO also opened up a blockchain division. Rabobank also opened up a blockchain division, and ABN AMRO was already fined a huge hefty fine for not paying attention to KYC AML laws, like literally a month and a half ago.
Too much context, but the main question.
Tyler,
those are all banks.
Hold on, Jonathan. The main question is: does this guy have any power or not? That's the only question that matters right now. Okay, good. Then moving on. Next article. Thank you. So the next big article is Apple provided data to House Democrats after the Department of Justice subpoenaed Apple during a Russia leak probe. Apple notified the lawmakers after a gag order expired this year. The Justice Department seized records from Apple for metadata of House Intelligence Committee members, their aides, and family members. And what this, sorry for all of the legalese, essentially what's happening is the Department of Justice, which works under the president and was chaired by Bill Barr. So Trump hired Bill Barr, or elected Bill Barr to be the head of the Attorney General, which is the head of the Department of Justice. And Bill Barr forced Apple to reveal data on Trump's main political opponents, which in that case was Adam Schiff. And Apple basically shared metadata about Mr. Schiff, which is very, very concerning. And they were also trying to get data from about journalists, which is very, very concerning. And they were very focused on the sources of the information to the journalists. And when journalists do reports and release news and they have anonymous sources, it's very important that journalists have anonymous sources, and it's very important to the entire craft of journalism globally that sources can remain anonymous and be off the record. And it's up to the reputation of that publication that they honor that whistleblower who wants to stay off the record, and they say we have sources who say this, and they know who those sources are. And in this case, the Department of Justice was going to force Apple to show data about these journalists to try and track down who these sources are that were saying things that Mr. Dear Trump leader did not like. And that is an incredible direct threat to the function of a democracy, actually. And he was
Hey,
doing
so
not only...
Tyler, last
Yes.
night I was tipped off about Adam Schiff at my private. I was told that this is so crazy that you're mentioning this because I know
Okay.
people that claim to be close to Trump, but they don't tell me how close they are. And they
Okay.
said that I would see in the next week or so Adam Schiff be arrested. And I said, "Who is Adam Schiff?" And they told me he's a congressperson in California. And I
Yeah.
Googled him and looked him up. This is like literally hours ago. So
Uh-huh.
to hear this headline, I'm more like you just confirmed so much stuff. Just
Well, he's the head of the House Intelligence Committee, which is he's not just any Congress member. He's the one who was really leading the investigation of kind of Russian collusion and Donald Trump.
Literally
And
to the whole thing.
yeah, the whole idea of Russian collusion in getting Trump elected, Adam Schiff was leading that. And that's why they came gunning for Adam Schiff, and they wanted data from Apple. And Apple said, we did give the metadata, but we didn't give the emails and the photos. And to that I say, well, why are you telling us that you didn't give the emails and the photos unless you were obviously asked for them? Clearly, clearly you were asked for them if you're volunteering the fact that you didn't relinquish them, and you only relinquished the metadata. It's very interesting
so
development.
have you heard the claims against Adam Schiff? Do you know what they are?
No.
Okay, so last night I was told that he would come out as, I don't know, something sexual, and I wouldn't like it. And so to hear this today, that's probably why the photos and such are not being released, because if any of it is true, you wouldn't want what I heard last night released.
Okay, well, let us know when you get the receipts on that one. We could break some
I'm gonna
real.
call. I'm gonna call the person right now that told me.
We're
So
gonna
watch
break
my
some.
phone.
We're gonna break some real news here. So the other big news at the moment is uh, EA, the big gaming giant, is the latest victim of the super big ransomware hack. And EA hackers say they used stolen cookies bought online for $10 to gain access to EA's Slack account, and then tricked the IT support to give the login tokens to the EA's network. And essentially, they are claiming to reveal how precisely they hacked into EA's network, pulling out 780 gigabytes of data, including the source code for their most popular title, FIFA 21, and they're holding that all for ransom. The fact that they're revealing precisely how they got in is quite interesting, and it's worth investigating and unpacking this. That these hackers say these cookies that were bought online, because what happens is hackers often find lots of passwords and then they share them in the dark web in these databases. And so these hackers bought a bunch of cookies, and it was one of these cookies essentially gave them access to a communication app called Slack, where teams coordinate and talk. So you have the EA team is using Slack as an app to talk about all of the internal important business at EA, and they look authentic. So when they join the Slack account, they look like they are a team member at EA, which is a huge company, tens of thousands of people, and they look like employees of EA in the EA Slack account. And they tell the IT support team inside of the Slack channel, hey, we need this particular password for this part of the network. And apparently that IT support person fell for it and handed over the password. And that's what they're claiming is how they got in, which is very interesting. There, no doubt, there will be more developments, just like the Colonial Pipeline and just like the meat packing companies. This is in process, in development. There will be more headlines tomorrow, no doubt, and we will get into that. Another really big story that happened in the last few hours, in the past 24 hours, is that Apple has hired BMW's EV lead named Ulrich Kranz, who also is a co-founder of an autonomous EV startup. So you've got both autonomous and EVs from BMW moving over to Apple. And why would an EV autonomous car
Allegedly,
person
allegedly.
be going? When the headline from Bloomberg is Apple has hired, not allegedly hired.
I was being facetious.
Yeah. So why is Apple hiring somebody with the specialties and a co-founder of a autonomous EV company, electric vehicle company, unless of course they have their own ambitions to do their own autonomous EV vehicle? And the question is, how much will it cost, and when is the release date? That's pretty much all.
Would you buy an Apple car, Tyler?
It's possible. I bought
I think that would look
the
very cute.
yeah.
Their car, I think their car is probably like five. In my opinion, I think their car is still about 5 or 6 years out. If you look at how long it takes them with any project that they start, and how meticulous they are about their projects, and then you take into consideration they've been working on those cars for a good 8 to 9 years at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like they're still about, I'd say, 5 or 6 years out from actually having this thing production ready.
Yeah. And speaking of cars, we mentioned Tesla just did their big live streaming event of
That
their
event was
new
cool.
Tesla
Tyler,
S
sorry to
Plaid.
interrupt.
Yes, go
Speaking
ahead,
of
Bros.
hacks, McDonald's just got hacked in Korea and Taiwan, I think.
Oh, did it?
I tweeted it out to you in
Okay. Read
Tech News.
the headline if you would.
Speaking of hacking, is anyone familiar with the clubhouse rooms that keep getting hacked? I
Yeah,
was
we
on a
talked
room
about it
last.
last night. It was pretty
Okay,
outrageous what happened. Yeah,
I was on a room
let's
last
hear
night
this.
at midnight.
Let's get this McDonald's
Let's
one.
hear this other article
Yeah,
that was about to be read, though.
Go ahead,
yeah.
Frost.
Sorry, Faraz, go ahead.
Okay, one second. Now I have to find Tyler. Can you pull it up, man?
I've got it right
I was on
here.
my
Yeah, I
usual
just found it.
news madman roll. Sorry.
I'm tweeting it from the Tech News Twitter account, which again is TNATW, the first letters of tech news around the world.
Brilliant.
And this one from Bloomberg says McDonald's says hackers stole customer data in Korea and Taiwan. McDonald's Corp said hackers accessed some customer data in South Korea and Taiwan, adding the fast food chain to the growing list of companies grappling with cyber attacks in recent weeks. After discovering unauthorized activity on its network, the company determined that a small number of files were accessed, some of which contained personal data. According to an emailed statement Friday, the access has been closed off and no customer payment information was in breach. McDonald's said the company said it was also been taking steps in some markets to address files that contained employee personal data. It didn't say how many customers or employees were affected. Data breaches from organized hackers have been a serious risk for consumer-facing companies around the globe in recent years, as corporations collect and store increasing more information on shoppers in order to fulfill online orders and personal experiences. And the real question is, Faraz, how many McNuggets did you order? Because that is
A
some value.
shitload.
That is now going to become very valuable data indeed. I think this is a
My
nothing
kid
burger.
doesn't eat anything but nuggets, so I'm screwed.
Yes, but I'm calling this headline a nothing burger, no pun intended, because
Yeah.
I don't think the McDonald's customer data is actually that valuable to even McDonald's. Honestly, it's just an embarrassment. It's just, I mean,
Yeah,
that's an interesting idea.
that is completely true. I mean, there's absolutely no value there.
Chandra, how many Happy Meals did you order in 2020?
None, zero.
Yes. Okay. Well, there you go.
Hang on,
Hang on.
guys. Don't you use the delivery applications that then have the access to your data that then give it to McDonald's to pay?
Possibly
Aren't they
that.
all linked?
Well,
Aren't they all linked?
the point you are making an interesting point is that the data of McDonald's customers in the future, once they start delivering via drones with cameras that authenticate with your facial recognition when they deliver it to you, then you're getting into some interesting data because their face scan identifying you when they make the delivery, because the robot has a difficult time checking ID. And when that robot does deliver your Happy Meal to your front door, it's going to authenticate you with your Face ID, and that data is actually quite interesting. So,
I
And
think
it can
there's a
make sure you're
value, of
happy while you're at
course.
it.
There's a value, of course. McDonald's is a big name. It's on headline now. So because of this cyber attack, the cybersecurity consultant will have a job.
right, but it's more about embarrassing McDonald's, and no doubt the extortion scheme was like, "Hey, McDonald's, you don't want to ruin your brand here, do you? The data is actually worthless, but you're just going to be embarrassed, and why don't you just give us, a Bitcoin or two? We can make this go away for you." But
You also know that the cybersecurity consultant are the best hackers, right? You know that, right?
yes, everybody does know that. That's why we don't need to mention it.
But what makes this thing, a slightly interesting proposition is, given the kind of franchises that McDonald's has, and how they are, using their data to kind of, get their products out to their customers, because not each, franchise of McDonald's is similar to the American McDonald's. So that's, that kind of goes, a little more intriguing in there as to, how they're actually, getting that customer data to get, what those customers actually want. And maybe those, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. More interesting headlines, and then I'll pause to see if anyone has some that they would like to share.
I
Twitter's.
was just Tyler. One just
Go ahead,
quick
Ben.
thing. Just want to say I agree with Michael on the timescale for the Apple car, and the reason is they're normally late to the party but arrive in style. And really interesting, MKHB. The dark guy who does tech videos.
MKBHD.
Yeah,
Yes.
MKBHD. He's awesome, and he did a good video on why they're always late. And the basic
Yep.
bottom line was integration. It's just the amount of effort and time they make to make the thing that they do, that Android's done for ages, integrate properly to everything else. So it's
That's right.
fascinating to think about all the integrations with the Apple car.
Yes.
Just you can really get your mind going on how deeply that'll integrate with your life.
Yeah. Well,
and the other thing they said years ago that they're a mobile device company. I remember seeing, I think it was even Steve Jobs saying that. And that's really interesting because that's the ultimate mobile device, right? It's just a big one.
right. What I mean, to tie a bow on your point, so everyone in the room understands about integration, what he's referring to is the Apple ecosystem is your watch, your phone, your laptop, your TV, and eventually your car and your VR glasses. And the point is that Apple notoriously, whenever they make anything new, it affects everything they've ever made before. So the Apple car would have to integrate with your watch and your phone and your laptop and your TV and your everything, and even
And
your
imagine
VR.
the health data opportunity. You're in the car; it's measuring your blood pressure, your body
Right.
temperature, your psyche, your emotional outlook for the day. I mean, it's pretty big opportunity.
And it's very
And
easy to it's easy to imagine at Apple campus when they say, okay, we're going to do the car. And then the entire Apple Watch team has to think for 6 months about what that means for them. And the iPhone team has to think about what that means for the iPhone. And then the Apple TV team has to think for 6 months what they're going to do with the car. And you see why it becomes slower for Apple to innovate, because they're so focused on the integration of their ecosystem. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say that this integration, this internal network effect they create may go a long way to explain how big and successful they are. I've just kind of realized that every time they add a new thing, it pairs off with all the other things, and it creates like an n squared improvement to what they've got.
Well,
They don't
that's
just
why
add,
it's so. That's why
not
it's.
just
I mean,
additional.
that's what we're paying for, though. Like we've had this discussion for years and years. Whenever somebody says, "I just don't understand why you're overpaying for Apple product," you're not overpaying. You're paying for something that no other company can do, which is the simple quality of life difference in having every single fucking product you own and technology in your house, all of them literally operate together and seamlessly. And when I say seamlessly, I mean so much so that one of their biggest announcements at WWDC this year was the fact that your keyboard and mouse, as you're working on your iMac, you're going to be able to just slide your mouse over to your MacBook and drop a file off of that onto your iMac, and simultaneously do the same thing to the right of your screen on your iPad. And you'll be able to go ahead and airdrop that straight over to your iPhone. And you'll be able to go downstairs and AirPlay that over to your Apple TV. And it's just endless how integrated every single thing that they do is with everything else. And so when you talk about a premium that people are paying, you're not paying that premium just for the hardware. And in fact, you're not paying for the hardware at all. You're paying for how well integrated the software is with that hardware, and the fact that one company owning both of these things from the bottom up is able to truly, truly, truly fine tune these things to a degree that other companies simply can't. No matter how great Android is, it has to compensate for the absolute trashiest Android out there and the absolute best Android out there. And being focused on that many different products at once that don't operate on I mean, think about that. That versus Apple, which literally 95% of all their products at this point run on the exact same M1 chip. It's just a level of integration that no other company is really in a position to even start to compete with. And that's what you're paying for when you pay the quote unquote Apple premium.
Well, there's another interesting element as well, which is Apple came back against Windows 95, where they nearly went out of business, and their path back was the iMac first, and then the iPod played a very important role in getting people to buy a lesser expensive device, which worked really well and paired much better with the Apple system. So an iPod owner, when they go to buy a computer now, are much more likely to buy the hardware that works better with their favorite little music device, which would be an Apple computer instead of a Windows computer. And that drove market share of Apple. And now the Apple Watch is doing precisely the same thing. Apple Watch buyers who aren't Apple computer buyers are more likely to buy an Apple computer than a non-Apple computer. And it's because of how well integrated they all are. So that's another important reason of why they take such care to integrate those things so carefully, because they employ a Trojan horse strategy with their accessories, like their AirPods, like their AirPod Maxes, like their Apple Watch, and all of these things grow their ecosystem because they're so well integrated. So that's an important reason.
People are always so. It's really fun too, because people don't know about all the integrated uses and use cases for these things. When I was on set, this was 2 days ago. When I was on set 2 days ago, filming, and I was about to shoot something, and I didn't know where my phone was. And the director and the first AD and everybody, it's a crew of like 20 people in here, and I was like, anybody see my phone? Nobody saw it. I flicked up on my Apple Watch. I pinged it. It pinged off. Everyone started laughing, and the director was like, "How the hell did you do that?" And I was like, "Your Apple Watch can find your phone for you." And he said, "No fucking shit." And then we sat there for 5 minutes of wasted studio time and money. And I showed him how to ping his phone when he loses it. It's these little discovery things like this. And think about that. That happened in front of a whole bunch of people who very likely half of them probably didn't know about that functionality either. And it's this type of word of mouth experiences that occur where these it's like magic and it just work moments, I like to call them, that really solidifies what happens when you're a part of that ecosystem.
Samsung is close to doing this. The Samsung fanboys out there would say, I can do that, but they're just not quite getting it like Apple. What's a shame with Apple is that they've dropped the ball on games, though. They completely dropped the ball on desktop gaming. They were the original gaming machines, and then they took a look at what PCs were doing and went, hey, we need to get in the office space. And they went, oh, boring as shit for a while. and they're just completely lost
Yeah,
on
Apple
desktop
Apple
gaming.
Arcade is Apple Arcade even as a mobile gaming platform is pretty lame, and I love video games, but it's just a non-event.
Yeah,
I
they've got to
agree.
claw that back. They've got to fix their relationship with Nvidia, and
And
claw that
that's the
shit
big
back.
problem,
Because
Ben.
I would pay more money for an Apple gaming machine than if I could have just an Apple game. But it's just they are useless as a gaming machine, completely
That's
useless.
the big problem, and for the folks listening in the Nvidia situation with Apple, this is a long time running. This is he's not referring to something new. This is literally a decade old situation that has caused a lot of issues on Apple computers because it basically nullified any kind of active GPU rendering, and it really just killed the power of Apple computers, and this is actually why Apple started creating Metal back in the day when they started creating Metal, and now Apple with the M1X, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking more the M2 is when they're really going to kind of show the powerhouse. Apple Silicon is one thing. When they show their internal created GPU, and this thing is capable of doing this is really what needs to happen. They need to basically have a GPU that's on par with, let's say, a 3090. That's really just what has to
And a
happen.
software stack for the developers, such that when they're
Exactly.
developing a game for PC, it's just a
Exactly.
toggle box in Unity to cross compile that over to the Apple. If they do that, they'll be back in the Apple desktop space.
Exactly, and
So it'd
I
be
think they're going to
fascinating.
do that. I think they're going to do that with their new internal GPU. I think that's honestly, this is why I think they haven't been so concerned with the Nvidia relationship, because quite frankly, I same thing here. Same thing here. If I don't I game on my Mac, but I have a very powerful PC which which I use for 3D animation, but also for gaming from time to time. But the second Apple releases their internal GPU and it's anything near 3090, I will have no need for gaming.
You
But
will though. You will, because
then
you'll have no
again,
games.
that's what I was about to say. Then again, the software companies also have to have a desire to port their games over to Apple Silicon, regardless. So we'll see.
Yep. So there, Faraz just found a really good article that he tweeted and included our Twitter account, TNATW. So I just retweeted it to our ever growing list of very beautiful Twitter followers. We just broke 2,400. We're adding about 100 a day. And you too can be enriched and more knowledgeable if you follow the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And you can, if you really want to take it to the max and become all you really were ever meant to be, all that your mom knew that you could be, you can do that right now by simply clicking on the title of this room and joining the Tech News Club. Make your parents proud. Do it now. We'll wait. Click on the title of the room, join the Tech News Club. Make your mama proud.
Michael, just look at Michael. He's making everyone proud.
Your mama's
Well,
proud of
you
you,
know,
Michael.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with the audience for a quick second. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Look, tech news around the world, it does a lot of things for you. I won't lie. Yeah, yeah, it raised my credit score 400 points. Yeah, my salary doubled. Look, there are things that happened. A girl decided to date me when I joined Tech News Around the World. Um,
Amanda.
she has since left me, but it was there for
I
about
got a
a
green
good
card.
30. It was there
Who's
for a good
that?
38 minutes. It happened for a
That
good
was
38
before the
minutes.
AI girlfriend?
There are things that happen when you join Tech News Around the World.
He's doing an
Exclusive
infomercial. He's
things.
doing an infomercial.
So
It's good.
I
Perks.
wanna encourage you all to join Tech News Around the World. And by the way, some people might say losing your hair is a bad thing, but when you look at that sexy, glowing head of Tyler's, and you start to consider the benefits of having something that shiny on top of your body, you start to realize it's worth it. So just click that button, folks. Hit that
Yeah.
greenhouse. Join Tech News Around the World, and you guys are going to thank
All for the price of
Well, today
one
and today
Bitcoin.
only. For today and today
free.
only,
Tyler, how
there's
much
no
did you pay
Wait,
Michael today?
no, it's absolutely free today and today only. And folks, get in on that good life. Get that good life. Click that button. It's
Can
time
I
to
tell
get
them
yours.
that?
Don't
Can I?
don't be stupid. Don't let this opportunity pass you by again.
And we'll share
right?
juicy data with you.
It's
Because
surprising that this room is having somewhere around 500 to 700 people in average, and still 168 members only. I
yeah,
can't believe that. I mean, this has been a wonderful room,
yep.
and a lot of people here. So I guess they are mostly, subscribing to the Twitter account as opposed
Yeah,
to the Tech News account
both.
here.
If you
Oh,
really
no,
want to,
Lale,
if you,
because we have a lot of followers.
Oh no, we
yeah,
have 27,000 followers.
It
Yeah,
Like
was
we,
sorry,
it was
Lale.
it was 20K last week, so
I
that's
see.
some phenomenal growth.
Tyler
yeah,
is
we
just
have
very
we have
selective.
27,000 followers.
here's the thing.
Somebody just DM me,
I'm not gonna.
Tyler, and asked
I'm hold on.
Here's the thing though.
if they get
Yeah.
a membership button.
Let me break some news
Here's the
here.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
ahead, Cal.
Here's the
Go
thing.
ahead, Cal.
No,
Let
no,
them know
no.
what's up. I'm
I'm
just saying
teeing you up.
we may or what are we approaching in terms of the number of followers for Tech News? We're now at 26,900.
27.
27,000, brother.
Okay, we're at
27,000.
27,000. We're going to cap it off at 30,000. Okay, because we
Wow.
can't
Limited
It's
keep
like
edition.
Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin.
we
Yeah, we
can't
need
Unlimited.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can't let everybody in on the good life. Okay,
True.
Hey,
it's this.
There
Tyler,
will be a dark
when
pool
you
though.
IPO, can I get some shares?
You want to get in on this?
When
Get
you
in
IPO,
now.
yeah,
It's
you know
like
I am.
Now,
Bitcoin in the early days, y'all.
now
You
or never,
don't
Gabby.
want to look back when you're, later in life and say I coulda, shoulda, woulda,
Yeah, we only have 10% capacity left, yo.
Right. Just get in on this right now. Now's your chance. Make your mama proud. Do the right thing. Join the Tech News Club today.
And my
So,
mother's never been proud of me
Is your mama
until
in the
I joined
audience,
Tech
by the way,
News.
Tyler?
yeah.
Your mama is in the
And
I'm
audience?
gonna auction off my account on eBay after we hit that 30K.
Oh,
you can,
yes, Chris, what a great idea.
and I just want to say,
Michael, show them the good life, the crystal you got. Show them the good life you
well,
live
it's even
now.
better than that because
Oh, I'll change my
hang
PTR.
on, before joining Tech News, his mama wouldn't even answer his phone calls. And now his mama is so proud of him.
She wanted nothing to do with me. My mother wanted nothing to do with me. In fact, I was adopted, and then I joined Tech News, and all of a sudden I get this phone
Oh,
call. I'm your biological mom. I'm
I
the
think
one that left you
I
at
think
McDonald's when
I
I
think
had
she
you.
found you
It
in
was
Tech
crazy.
News.
Bring meaning to
yeah.
your
She
life.
heard about you in Tech
Oh,
News.
your mama found you on Clubhouse?
Yeah. If
Yeah, she
you
was like,
Oh,
all of a sudden she loved me,
congratulations.
and these are your 5 siblings, and all this other stuff. I'm like, what?
if you want to have a family, if you want to have a life, it's very simple. You
If
just
you
click
want
on
a
the title of the room.
girlfriend.
You want to be happy, you want to be successful, you want to be fulfilled. It's really simple. Click on the title, join the Tech News Club. Let me share some headlines with you.
Results may
Results
vary.
may
Hallelujah.
vary. Yeah, side
Yeah.
effects may
Results may
happen. Anyway,
vary.
your results may vary. Now, here's an interesting article that Faraz just found, and I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account. Trump's spokesperson to run a tech startup as the ex-president plots his return. That's the headline. We just retweeted it. You can see this for yourself. This is not a joke. Jason Miller has been the senior advisor to former President Donald Trump. Trump has been touting new social media platform to evade the bans that he's suffering from Twitter and Facebook and really all of them, YouTube, all of them. I mean, literally all of them. Donald Trump spokesperson Jason Miller is taking over a technology startup company at a time when the former president is considering launching a new social media platform after being banned from Twitter and Facebook. Jason Miller, who worked on Trump's presidential campaigns and has served as a senior advisor and spokesman since Trump left the White House on January 20th, will soon become the chief executive officer of an unnamed tech startup, according to a person familiar with the plans. There's no imminent announcement or start date, the person said. Miller will remain tied to Trump's post-presidential world, but Trump has begun interviewing potential replacements, the person said. The company owns one of the social media platforms Trump is considering to launch his comeback, the person said. Miller said on Newsmax June 5th that some options are in beta testing phase and that Trump has taken about 24 pitches and presentations. Miller said a platform could launch later this summer. Here's the quote. What he's going to come out with is going to be very special, Miller said in an interview. I'm not just blowing smoke at you. This will knock your socks off, he said. So you guys
So
just get ready.
let me add to it because I got insider knowledge, of course, on this. I've
Oh,
been
here.
told that he would launch his platform very soon. 3 days ago, I was told, watch the next 45 days. The other thing is, if you pay attention to where Trump's kids are at, they're on certain platforms, and I've already been tipped off on them. I'm not saying that that's will be where he lands. Right now, Trump still is doing a lot of his messaging on Telegram, and that whole media thing about his blog being like getting reduced visibility. Just pay attention to the fact that in order to find his blog, you had to go through Google, and if you know anything about Google, they could control where your search results end up. They could control what you find. So this is Gabby. And Cal, I sent you an article I found on Adam Schefter. I'm waiting for my contact to give me the one that they saw on him, but they're saying it's hard to find. You know how news articles all of a sudden
They've been attacking
disappear.
him for years and years and years and years.
So I DM Cal it, but I don't know if that's the one we want to share publicly. So I'm waiting because I did make a phone call after I made that statement.
There we
So
to
to be determined.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's a
can
bunch
wait.
of
That's cool
brouhaha.
stuff. Thanks, Gabby. We can
Yep.
wait.
I want to turn it to our friend Jonathan, and pardon me for muting you earlier, Jonathan. I was on a roll, but you just shared a really interesting article here. You want to jump into this IMF story? Mr. Jonathan Lashiwa, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan, are you there? Go ahead, Jonathan.
Ground control to Jonathan.
I don't see him in the room.
Jonathan.
Ground
He's
control
there.
to
He's there.
Jonathan.
Jonathan's there.
Is he there?
Yeah,
No,
he's on
the
stage.
mic's not moving. Yeah. You move on first, circle back to him later.
Okay. He says he's on another call now in the DM, so we will pause and come back to him in a minute. Or actually, I'll just share it for him. Let's do it that way. So, really interesting article from Forbes. I will tweet this from Reuters, rather. Let me tweet this right now from the Tech News Twitter account, which, by the way, is at TNATW, and that is the first letters of tech news around the world. And I know that's a bizarre coincidence, but that's just how it
No,
worked out.
no.
That's just that. Yeah,
That
that's the magic of Clubhouse. Yeah. So
guess
the
you're right.
IMF sees legal economic issues with El Salvador's Bitcoin move. Well, who would have suspected that the IMF would have a problem with this? And by the way, it's worth noting, and here's a little inside scoop for all you slow kids in the class. The El Salvadorian president was on Twitter Spaces as they were passing the vote in their legislature, which
5
happened
minutes before.
right, and then they did the vote, and that vote was about 3 days ago, and later that day, and they did that vote in quite late in the evening their time. And the very next morning, he met with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which makes me wonder, did they intentionally rush the vote before the meeting with the IMF, the already preset meeting with the IMF, because they wanted to make sure that the vote was in and the vote was passed, and now it's a law, and now they meet with the IMF, and now the IMF is saying in Reuters, the IMF sees legal and economic issues with El Salvador's Bitcoin move. That rascally bastard went and passed that law right before our lunch meeting. That's what they're saying.
What a humdinger.
It did
Hey,
come up in the
Tyler.
Bitcoin. It did come up in the Bitcoin rooms. Who the hell are the IMF, and what gives them the authority to make any of these decisions anyway? Who voted them, and
Hey,
who
Tyler.
the hell voted those fuckers in the first place? Just saying.
And is Satoshi involved?
Tyler.
Is
Gabby,
Satoshi in the IMF?
Seriously though.
Yeah.
Mulder and
I'm
Scully are on the case.
I'm actually trying to tweet something for the past 20 minutes. It's not letting me tweet it. I'm actually tweeting the document in Spanish that was signed by the president. So I
I
actually
think
have the 4-page document. It was sent to me from South America, from Central America. So I'm tweeting it out where he
okay.
actually signed it. It's in Spanish though, so I'm putting it out for the Spanish people in the community as well because it's in Spanish. I'm tweeting it in Spanish, but I'll tag Tech News around the world so you'll see it.
Yeah. But this comes as no surprise. And just so y'all know, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is formerly, the group that countries would turn to when they needed loans, basically. And the IMF has an incredibly big purse and checkbook. And when you do take a loan from the IMF, it comes with some strings attached, and they are not anyone to be trifled with. And so when El Salvador makes this Bitcoin move that the IMF sees as having legal and economic issues, that's kind of Geneva, Switzerland talk for you guys are causing some
Yep.
bullshit. Yeah, that is. Let's unpack this for people who don't spend time in Geneva. The IMF is not. When they say they see legal and economic issues, they mean this dude is a downright rascal bastard, and he's got shit coming his way. That's what they're trying to say. So careful. He should be careful because again, the IMF is nobody to be fucking with.
And they do, just to be fair on them. I know that they can be ridiculed here. They do have receipts though, right? They're
Very
in Geneva
literally.
with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bankers.
Yes. So,
Yeah, you don't want
by
to
the way,
play games with those guys.
you do not want to be playing games with these guys. They are the banks. They are the central banks. They are the big. They are the big bank. You know when you play Monopoly,
Tyler,
you
but
got
aren't they the
hold on.
bank?
You know when you
Sorry.
play Monopoly, that little old man with the hat with the mustache, that's the IMF. That's him. That's the guy.
The granddaddy.
My missing
But
right
then
arm would like a word with you.
Tyler, then why? To Ben's point, which I kind of agree with, to then so then my only thought out loud would be that El Salvador must have some loans or some debt out to the IMF then, because why would the IMF want to? I mean, aren't they Europe mostly?
No,
No,
the
it's
sorry,
global.
I've just been on a
International.
call, but
It's
the
international.
IMF
Okay,
have
okay,
a loan program nearly agreed with El Salvador for $1 billion, and that's what
got it,
apparently they're threatening to hold back on.
got it. That's what I was asking. Thanks, Jonathan.
There's another point, which is America gives El Salvador quite a number of millions of dollars every year. Yeah. Um, and if America it doesn't like this move, you can pretty much bet America is going to say, "Hey, you know that 50 million or 100 million we give you every year? Yeah, well, good luck with that." Um,
Also
but
known as future Google.
so yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how El Salvador maneuvers this. It's I in fact I'm not saying that will discourage them. If anything, it might encourage them, and no doubt they saw that all of these moves coming. They knew the IMF was not going to be happy about this. That's why they rushed the vote the day before the IMF meeting. By the way, so it's going to be very interesting to see how El Salvador unites with its kind of fraternal neighbors in all around South America, Central America, in a sort of maybe they kind of unify and stand up against this what they see as this deep state-ish U.S. driven um, global power, that they sometimes feel like they are the underdog, the kind of perpetual underdog in that dynamic, and this is their way of kind of circumventing that whole system. So that to be continued, no doubt. This just came out. Thank you for this, Jonathan. So, anyone else with something hot on the stage? I've got a whole bunch in my stack as usual.
Tyler, I have
Yes.
something I just tweeted out
Let's check it
today
out.
about a House bill. I'm not sure if you saw it on the Twitter account.
Okay.
That they're looking to possibly vote in about the whole splitting up of private labels and like Amazon and things like that from I forget the name of the act, something Ending Monopolies Act or something
Yep.
like that.
Yes,
It's
yes.
five bills, not one bill. And Politico, the very reputable, very highly reputable publication, Politico rather, says that they have seen the bills that are expected to be passed, and it's all about breaking up. And we covered this yesterday, the details of it, where essentially it's going to limit the monopolistic tendencies and powers of the big five, tech FANG companies: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. And the idea is, make it harder for them to acquire future competitors, make it harder for them to do all of the games that they're doing. And that's now you're seeing the U.S. starting to clamp down on its tech companies. The problem is that U.S. process will take quite a long while, and it and here's really the real issue is that those big tech companies are also now the biggest campaign contributors to all of the American politicians and spend the most on lobbying. So it's going to get very messy because American politicians are not the best at cutting off their own money supplies. So it'll be interesting to see how that all gets watered down. Traditionally, what happens? These things have come up before. And what happens is that the big tech companies themselves have people on their behalf who help write the legislation in ways where it appears that they're being punished, but in reality only further entrench their powers. And I imagine this time will be no different. And that's ultimately what's getting everybody upset behind the scenes, is when these new data policies come into play, like GDPR. GDPR was supposed to kind of limit powers of big tech companies and everything. And at the end of the day, it plays right into their strengths and it limits potential competitors down the road. And it's very clever. It's a really very clever game that all of these lawyers at these companies are playing.
Tyler,
Yeah.
I just tweet one from China.
Mm-hmm.
It's regarding the recent law that they passed to set up a special group to enforce the anti-sanctions law against the Western countries.
I got it
You
right
can
here
take a
from.
look at it. Yeah,
I've got it.
China speak. They just passed the law yesterday, and now it's drafted.
Yeah. So what this is in relation to is very interesting as well, which is simultaneously America just passed a bill for $250 billion. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of bees to boost America's battle in tech against China. And China responded verbally by saying, this is outrageous and how dare you. And now China, according to the South China Morning Post, which Cheryl just tweeted and I just retweeted to the Twitter account, TNATW, China to set up special group to enforce anti-sanction laws, because China is referring to these as sanction laws that America is imposing. America's you can't it's debatable if what America is doing is sanctioning China. It's not official that America is sanctioning China, but China sure feels like they're being sanctioned. So that's why China's calling it this anti-sanction law that they're passing. Under sweeping legislation, the body will study options for dealing with foreign companies and individuals which implement Western bans. Measures will include denial of visas or expulsions, as well as the seizing and freezing of assets within China. And essentially what China's doing here, I'll unpack this for you, is there are American companies that are in China, very notably Apple. And what they're now doing is they realize that the way to fight America is not to tell America, hey, America, we don't like what you're doing, because America just laughs and says, go screw yourself, China. And so what China says is, oh, really? Well, you've got this company here named China. And so they go over to Apple, and China tells Apple, hey, Apple, we know how this game works. We know what America really cares about, and we know who can really influence America. It's not us, it's you. So we're going to give us your arm. We're going to twist your arm, Apple. We're going to stop giving you visas for your executives to come in and out of China. And you're going to go back to Uncle Joe Biden and tell him to fix it. So they're going to hold the American companies sort of a loose, soft hostage situation by denying visas and doing expulsions. And as they are saying in the South China Morning Post, and that's going to put pressure on Apple very specifically and other large American companies, who then go back to Joe Biden and say, hey, Joe, we got a problem. You got to fix this. Because that's what will influence Joe Biden. Not China can jump up and down and scream bloody murder all they want. That ain't going to change nothing. When American big corporations tell Joe Biden to fix things, now he's got to address it. So it's very clever on China's behalf. And this is very similar to what they did in Sweden, for example, when Ericsson, who is the creator of 5G, and 5G is rolling out internationally, and the real battle for 5G internationally is between Ericsson and Huawei, who stole all of Ericsson's hardware by putting their headquarters next door to Ericsson and hiring all their best talent, offering them way more than they could ever make, and sucking out all the technology.
And underpricing Ericsson by like 80% in every deal in Europe.
Hang on. So the point is that Huawei did figure out how to replicate Ericsson's technology with 5G. And then the US is saying we cannot let the world buy this Huawei 5G hardware because China is going to use it for espionage purposes. And China says, oh, that's crazy. And then the Netherlands said, nope, we have it here. You're doing it right now. Here's the receipts. And then they looked at the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia's capital of Addis Ababa, and sure enough, Beijing, who paid to build that structure, that building, indeed was tapped into the servers and was sucking out all that juicy data because they had placed their own taps into the whole system. And coincidentally, it was Huawei cameras were placed all throughout as well. And you can just Google that for yourself on the African Union
I
Chinese
actually, and
espionage.
a friend of mine, Tyler, is a security analyst and consultant, one of the best tech guys I know. I just retweeted his Twitter thread where he analyzes Huawei's security practices over a decade, and it's pretty shocking. So I just retweeted it.
Go watch the BBC documentary on how they dismantled Nordtel out of Canada, which was one of the other big pioneers in all of the telecommunications technologies. And Jean-Francois from Canada knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then they were doing it to Ericsson in Stockholm. And anyway, the point is that Ericsson, when Sweden is friendly with America, Japan, all of America's allies agreed, okay, we're not going to buy Huawei's 5G because it's going to be bugged and have taps and give all the data back to China. And then Sweden was going to, just like Japan, just like all of America's allies, ban Huawei in Sweden. And by the way, Sweden has Ericsson, so no one's going to buy Huawei in Sweden anyways. They have the real deal. They have Ericsson. And guess who says, no, we shouldn't ban Huawei in Sweden? It was none other than Ericsson's CEO. And why would Ericsson's CEO be defending his main rival and competitor who was stealing all of their intellectual property by putting in a building next door to their headquarters? And the reason that Ericsson's CEO is saying, hey, we shouldn't ban Huawei in Sweden is because he was told by China, hey, if your country bans our tech company, we're going to ban you in China, and there will be no more Ericsson in China. And Ericsson's business is about 20% in China, and now you know why Ericsson's telling Sweden, please don't ban Huawei in China. No one's going to buy it anyways. There's no need to ban it. No one's going to buy it. But if you do ban it, then China's going to ban us, and 20% of our business goes poof. And that's now you understand how China does, kind of diplomacy by pressuring
Tyler,
the
you know that one
companies
other ally that
more than the
can
government,
ban
just as they're
Huawei as
going to
well,
do
right?
now in this article from South China Morning Post. They're going to pressure, and that's why it's all about denials of visas and expulsions. Well, denial of visas is people, team members at companies, and expulsions mean removing, these key folks that are in China. Well, what is that? You're punishing people who work at these companies in retaliation for what you perceive as a anti-sanction laws. So it's, you see how they're
But Tyler, isn't there an EU problem? Because some countries like Italy are all in on Huawei, and others like Sweden have different positions than the Netherlands. So why isn't this an EU kind of led policy versus country by country?
Yeah, that's a great question. The real answer is because some countries have to choose who to cozy up to, and China's got a great pitch, and Italy can play the affections of China against the EU in hopes to get more from, don't, I'm going to date the bad boy, daddy. And dad's like, no, don't. I'll send you to whatever university you want.
And just to throw in the conspiracy card here, and you can play your conspiracy music. I mean, one of the reasons Italy was hit so hard by COVID was a huge amount of Chinese visitors, both for trade, tourism, and tech, with lots of connections between Italy and China. So it's a very subversive policy that China has to kind of play countries in the EU against each other.
Yeah, I don't know about the COVID
Tyler,
aspect, but yeah,
there was an article I sent to you earlier around today's news around President Biden and the F-35s and Huawei and the Middle Eastern nation. Did you get a read of that?
How long ago did you send it?
It was quite a while ago, but anyway,
then
I'll
there's 100 tweets that go through to get to that
there
one.
Was President Biden probing the United Arab Emirates on essentially having to cut down their ties with Huawei or potentially not giving the F-35 sales that have been committed to the United Arab Emirates.
You got it.
That's
And
the
welcome to the
that's the
new
headline.
Cold War, the tech Cold War, as our kids will call it, where it's all about stopping.
Tyler, one little implication just on this China
Uh-huh,
action.
uh-huh.
On the executives and the companies is obviously quite tough for the companies that have already invested in China or are vested. But it also, there's something that backfires for China is that new foreign direct investment, boards in the US will sit there and go, I'm not taking that investment now. I'm not opening up that store. I'm not doing this. So it kind of backfires sometimes when they do that. Obviously, it's just a big chess game.
Yeah, and look what's happening with Taiwan with TSMC coming into the U.S. with very lucrative tax credits. I mean, that's very much a geopolitical play to both boost our semiconductor industry as well as Taiwan's position vis-a-vis China.
Hey, I got some breaking news. This is Gabby.
Hey, go ahead, Gabby.
Related to Nigeria.
Let's
So
do it.
the president of Nigeria just fired
What happened?
the boss of their NBC National Broadcasting Company. He signed the ban to Twitter that initiated, and now he just fired him and replaced him with someone else. So I'm assuming that initial ban in Twitter in Nigeria is now becoming highly controversial, and someone fed misinformation, or someone is telling the president of Nigeria, you need to walk away from that.
I don't quite follow what's going on. So let's try this one more time.
So NBC, the boss,
The
national
American
broadcast,
NBC?
no, the Nigerian that runs their TV was just fired. Their
So there's
TV
an wait,
station
wait,
they
wait,
have
wait,
going.
wait, wait, wait. I'm you can understand my confusion. NBC is the National Broadcasting Corporation of America.
Yeah, but there's a Nigerian one. I just found this out for the
Okay.
country of Nigeria.
The Nigerian
Well,
Broadcasting Corporation. Is
they
there
call it the same thing as the American one. It's real odd.
okay.
Very
Okay. Now you
confusing.
understand why I'm confused. So there's a big
Yes,
television network in Nigeria called NBC. Okay, now I'm not confused. Go ahead.
correct. The boss, the person who runs it, was just terminated
Okay.
because he was part of the people or the group of people that encouraged the president to ban Twitter.
Okay.
Now that something has happened where now the president just sacked him from his job and replaced him to someone else. So this is leading me to believe that whoever told the president to run away from something is happening behind the scenes. June 12th. What's today? June 10th, I believe, right?
11, yeah.
They're planning that. They're planning that protest where right now all the people in Nigeria are told that their World Wide Web will be cut off. And so I
Right.
was in a Twitter Spaces room before I came in here where the people are talking about how to stay safe during the protest. They're all going to, at 6 p.m., make sure they're home. They're doing all types of things to make sure they're prepared because when there's protest, there is violence. And so I make sure my Nigerian people, and I'm not related to them, but I treat people all over the world like their family. I make sure that I stay tuned into what's going on there. I promise them that. I say, let me know what's going on because we get false information here in America. And so they just tipped me off on that.
There you go. Thank you, Gabby. Let's see here. Other headlines folks want to share from their part of the world, geographically or professionally. Feel free to jump in. Here's an interesting one that just happened. The New York Senate passes the first legislative body in the U.S. to pass right to repair legislation for electronics, which we spoke about here 24 hours ago, did we not? About how difficult all of these devices are becoming and how cars are becoming computers, et cetera, and how this issue of the right to repair, because according to Apple, you don't have a right to repair your Apple devices. Only they do. And if you take it to a non-Apple certified place, you're voiding your warranty by even opening the thing, even turning a screw on the thing. Because honestly, it's not even your device, according to their terms of service. So this just happening right now. I will tweet this out. And I'm telling you right now, this is going to become a new mega global super trend. It's already underway in parts of Europe, Sweden notably. Understands the importance of the right of device owners to be able to repair their own devices. And I believe it's France who's really leading this, where they're now telling hardware manufacturers, you even need to include kind of the manuals and instructions or videos or kind of materials that would assist somebody to repair their devices. So in this article that he just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, the New York State Senate has overwhelmingly voted to pass electronics right to repair legislation, becoming the first legislative body in the country to do so. It is a major step forward for a movement that has overwhelming public support and has been working towards getting a law done for the last several years. Here's the quote. It protects consumers from the monopolistic practices of manufacturers, Senator Phil Boyle said on the floor. We all have computers, laptops, and smartphones that we repair once in a while. Many times we have to send them back to the manufacturer for simple repairs that cost a lot more. Now people can repair their own computers, laptops, and smartphones and farm equipment. And the farm equipment is a huge issue, by the way. That is a tremendously big and complex issue, by the way, that the farmers are not able to repair their own tractors, for example. We don't have to send them back to the manufacturers. The Senate passed the bill with 51 senators voting for and only 12 voting against. And that's very interesting because no doubt the big companies like Apple and Google and all of these hardware manufacturers were no doubt financing lobbying to vote, suppress this from passing. And yet it passed because there's so much public demand for this. Johan, you're flashing?
Yeah, the thing is here that it actually started, the right to repair did actually not start from the phone end. It started from the tractors, the farming equipment. It was John Deere that actually made the move. You should be aware that these large farming equipment, they cost up to $500,000 each. And the thing is here that they were forcing them to use their registered services. Actually, they had kill switches beyond the dashboard. So if you open the dashboard, the machine won't move until there was a technician there with a computer to reset it again.
Yeah, you heard me say that the tractors were a very big deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I
I mean.
I have another one for you later.
Oh, feel free now if you like.
Apparently, our friends at VVW, Volkswagen, have had a major data breach. I sent it to you just a few seconds ago.
Very
and
interesting.
3.2 million accounts have been leaked from one of their subsidiaries. So they are at it again.
Okay. Volkswagen says a vendor's security lapse exposed details of 3.3 customers spanning from 2014 to 2019, including sensitive data of 90,000 clients in the US and Canada. Volkswagen says more than their information exposed after one of its vendors left a cache of customer data unsecured on the internet. So it's due to bad data hygiene, we call it. And I will tweet this from the Twitter account so you can learn about yet another big company that has fallen victim to this. And I'm curious how much the ransom will be for and how they will go about addressing this as this becomes not only a daily issue, but almost these are happening now multiple times per day, and it will continue to accelerate. And the beatings will continue until morale approves, as they say. Miami's Bitcoin conference, which Gabby and May both attended. Miami's Bitcoin conference may be the latest COVID-19 super spreader event. My God, who could have seen this coming? The event had...
You told us so, sir.
The event had no face mask or proof of vaccine requirements for its roughly 12,000 attendees. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
Tyler, let's see if the ransoms for all these attacks are all paid in Bitcoin. Pay attention. Pay attention. You see the bad news on the super spreader event. I'm talking to you guys right now and I don't have COVID-19, but you see the news, right?
Well, let's continue to read the news. Several crypto fans that descended on Miami, Florida last weekend for the latest Bitcoin conference in history are now saying they've tested positive for COVID-19. Larry Cermak, research director at the cryptocurrency news outlet The Block, said on Twitter Thursday that while he hadn't personally tested positive, everyone who he hung out with in Miami during the three-day Bitcoin 2021 conference. Several purported screenshots circulating on the platform showed other attendees announcing they had since tested positive for the virus. Looks like I'm joining the Bitcoin Miami COVID list, said cryptocurrency podcaster Luke Martin in a now deleted tweet, according to a screenshot shared by CryptoWhale. It's little wonder the conference is starting to look more like a possible super spreader event, given that there was no mask mandate or proof of vaccination requirement to attend. Some 12,000 people packed into the convention center, and Florida is one of 5 states that never implemented a statewide face mask requirement throughout the pandemic and was among the first to throw COVID-19 restrictions out the window. While part of the event was held outside, attendees still crowded into auditoriums, private house parties, and other networking events with nary a mask in sight, Bloomberg reports. Here's the quote: "Vaccines have been freely available for months in the U.S. to the extent that anyone who wanted to be vaccinated could do so by the time of the event," Bitcoin 2021 organizer BTC Media said in a statement to the outlet. "We provided all attendees with the current recommendations of the CDC and state of Florida and expressed to our audience that those who were high risk or hadn't been vaccinated should consider waiting until next year." BTC Media did not immediately respond to questions about the health precautions, if any, were in place last weekend. So we, no doubt, this is a developing story, and we will know probably tomorrow or the next day if this does turn out to be a super spreader event. Let's hope that it was not. And
So
because that,
I will say
yeah,
this much, Tyler. That is true that none of the establishments, buildings required face masks. Some of the hotels did, and every time that I got in an Uber or Lyft to go somewhere, those companies required face masks in Florida.
okay. Dan, let's go to the green.
Yeah, one interesting thing here is that Bitcoins is all for distributed chains, and here we have a virus chain they have distributed. Success.
This is Johan speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, did you guys cover? I just joined, but did you guys already cover the Tesla event yesterday?
Yeah,
The
we did.
release. Okay.
Any quick
This
thoughts
is
on that?
amazing car. Although I still have mine from 9 years ago, and it's still also an amazing car. So, that's the thing that I think people don't appreciate is that electric vehicles essentially perform like new forever, because they don't have their motors. It's like an electric fan that you might have from 30 years ago. You just turn it on and it works. So that's interesting part, and that's going to actually impact this next story here, which is peak internal combustion engine may have already been years behind us. The world hit a transport milestone in 2017, though people wouldn't have noticed it at the time. That year, consumers bought more than 85 million automobiles, a sales volume that declined in 2018 and again in 2019, and then plummeted in 2020 due to COVID-19. Meanwhile, sales of electric vehicles rose and rose again, making EVs the auto industry's only growth market, and meaning that we almost certainly hit peak internal combustion engine car sales 4 years ago. So that's interesting. I sent
So
that,
can I
DM
can I
that to
state
you.
the real deal facts on that, because I write the regulations related to this. Part of the reason why the
Sure.
sales went up is because there were tax incentives to buy electric cars. Like if you could buy a decent car at a lower cost, of course the sales are going to go up. And then when Barack Obama was Barack Obama, they incentivized buying electric cars all across certain states like California and other states. And now, if you look at the most recent regulations and legislations going back out, they're back incentivizing it. We had Barack Obama, the prior president, for 2 terms, 8 years. Then we had Trump for 4, who tried to roll things back. And now we're back Democratic. Pay attention, people. I know what's going on.
Well,
And this is the other thing I want you guys to know, because I got inside scoop. Porsche, I told you guys I was part of Porsche Clan. I've been tipped off by people from Porsche where they're still looking for fuel technology. So I'm just wait and see. Because at the end of the day, I could always get a Porsche Taycan, and I have not yet.
okay. Well, that's a good car. But the fact is actually that electric vehicle So an electric vehicle is better than an ICE, internal combustion engine car, in every way except for two things: upfront initial cost and also time to refuel. And both of those are going away very quickly. So the price of an electric vehicle is dropping dramatically. It's, remember, the Model S when it came out was $100,000, and a Model 3 today is $40,000. And the next car in a couple of years is supposed to be $25,000. And once it hits that, um, and keep in mind, it even at the $35,000, $40,000 car is still cheaper to own because you have much lower fuel costs, you have much lower maintenance cost. And by the way, one little fact on a Tesla that kind of surprises people is that there is no annual maintenance.
So
You know,
Dan, Dan, let me tell you something else.
yeah.
Prices go down when supply and demand change and when the infrastructure changes to be positive to that change. The other thing that you don't know about me is I'm an advisor to an EV battery company that Tesla has invested in. I cannot say the company's name, so I know more than I'm going to let you know. But
Well,
you could go ahead.
you know that the price of batteries have dropped like 70, 80% in the last 10 years, right? Price of lithium ion batteries, which used to be $1,000 when the Model S came out in 2012. The price of the lithium battery was a little less. It was less, but not much less. Like maybe like
But
$900 per kilowatt hour, right?
you're right, but
And
the
now
price of
it's
solar
estimated to be
power has gone up
150.
and the price of lumber has gone up due
Oh
to
yeah,
the
yeah.
pandemic.
Short run course. All these commodities are going up because of supply constraints. But then again, that's also true for the ICE cars too, not just for Tesla. So yeah,
So
Tesla's been raising its prices in the short run
I'm
because of
planning to
supply
go get
constraints.
I'm planning to go walk through the Lucid car manufacturer because you know they're the new
Sure.
electric company car trying
Yeah.
to disrupt the American market. I have a special invitation to go there. As soon as I feel like it, I'm gonna go down and check them out. When I was at in Florida for the car show about 3 weeks ago, I actually talked to them. And so the real challenge with electric cars is the battery. I'm being honest with
Correct.
you. It's the battery. And
Of
that's why I'm
course.
advising this bi-directional battery company.
What about the battery, Gabby? So
Yeah.
as a
Well,
as a as
what do
a
you think is the
what about
challenge? The price or longevity or power density?
yeah, what about the
What do you?
battery? Because I've had electric cars for 5 years. I have no issues with batteries. I mean, so I'm just
Right.
wondering what it is about the battery that.
It's the longevity. Like I can't take a road trip from where I'm currently located to the other part of the
Oh,
United
you
States.
mean the range? The range.
Yeah, the range,
The range.
yes. And then and then
So
and
taking
then
my
the
car up
But
to
size.
that's what Tesla's working on, and a lot of these players are working on. I mean, that using the
I drive.
charging station, charging network, etc., etc.
I regularly drive to Europe. I drive, for instance, to Amsterdam, and I only have to stop in the Tesla as often as my body wants to stop anyway. If you're the sort of person who likes sitting for 5 hours on your ass with your Apple Watch telling you 4 hours in a row that you should have moved, then maybe you're not going to like electric. But you only have to stop every 3 or 4 hours, and for 20 minutes, for maybe half an hour. And if you don't want to stop for half an hour every 3 or 4 hours, then I'm worried about your health,
But I
frankly.
will say this much. The Tesla car has been a gem in areas where car crime has increased, like Atlanta, Georgia, because they have cameras that operate
sure.
on them while the car is parked and no one's in it. And they've been able to catch criminals that have broken into cars that are parked next to Tesla vehicles, and that's a fact.
Sure. And my favorite thing about electric vehicles is dog mode, where you can leave the air conditioning running without keeping the car on, so you can leave your dog in the car, and it puts a big sign
But
on the screen saying
never
that the
your kids,
temperature is
though.
low. So there's lots of good things about electric vehicles. In terms of range, which you just mentioned, you got to remember that an electric vehicle is, if you have a charger at home, then your car is full every morning, and you never have to think about range unless you're going on a long trip. And next week, I'm taking my daughter up to Yosemite. And I went up to Yosemite when I first got my Tesla, and there were no superchargers. And there was a single charger in all of Yosemite. And I could make it there, but I wouldn't make it back if I couldn't charge. And I was able to. And the world has totally changed since then. There's just an incredible number of places for me to charge on the way up there now, and even inside of there. And the hotels, they have chargers there. So that part has changed. Batteries last a long time in terms of years. My battery's 9 years old and has dropped like 5% in that time. You got to
Wait,
remember, batteries die quickly when you
Dan
fully charge
and
them and fully discharge them every day, like for renewable energy, like solar energy. But an electric vehicle, you don't, very unusual to do that every day. Usually it's, kind of full and then you kind of discharge it
Dan,
halfway and recharge it. And
Dan
that
and Ben,
doesn't
sorry.
wear it out very much. Go
I
ahead.
have a question for Dan and Ben because it seems that you both own Teslas. What about what about the parts that make those batteries? Like the actual, I'm going to make really
You mean the
yippee
climate
like,
impact?
yeah, I'm just saying like the ingredients. I'm going to say it very yippee like the ingredients of making
Lithium.
those, yeah, that. What about that and
Sure.
the impact on the environment and going forward, how's that going to like be sourced?
So there's a lot of disinformation on the internet about the claiming that the carbon impact of electric vehicles is worse than ICE cars because of the batteries. And while the batteries do take a little more energy and resources or emissions, let's say, up front, they are far, far, far less over time. Where you got to remember, you're sticking gasoline in your car every week and burning it.
Yeah.
So
and you lose
Yeah,
when you do
Dan.
that. By the
and
way,
there's
you
no
lose
Yeah.
contest.
60%
Even
of
in
the
West
energy.
So,
Virginia,
Can
so
I
that's
add
great, but the
something
part
here?
that, sorry, let me just finish one thing, because I think my question wasn't completely understood, so I'm just going to rephrase
okay.
it. Wasn't talking about energy per se, but I was actually talking about the supply and demand component of the elements and the materials that make those batteries. That's what I'm talking about.
Well,
Like,
lithium is a big one, of
Lithium is one of
course.
the most abundant elements on. It's
Yeah,
very, very abundant.
exactly.
So
correct, but is lithium the only material that's making the battery?
Well, there's cobalt, which has been a problem because it mostly comes from the Congo, where they use child labor and stuff like that to get it. And so Tesla and others are designing cobalt out of the batteries and replacing it with nickel, which is still, nickel is very abundant, but it's still going to put a big demand on mining. Remember that when we started driving cars, oil was a commodity that we needed more of, and somehow we found, sort of unfortunately, we found a lot of it. So as demand increases, we'll find ways, especially for lithium, which is like 100 times more abundant in the ocean than it is on land, but it's still unbelievably dilute in the ocean, which is the reason we don't get it from there yet. But if we figure out how to mine it out of the ocean, we can have as much as we want, essentially.
Can I
That's
note another source of pollution on the cars? The tires. So the tires,
Sure.
when they hit the road, they emit what you call PM 2.5. That's particulate matter 2.5 micrometers or less.
And
This
that
is what. Wait,
that
this
Absolutely
is
is
that
right.
is not that's
I'm a
not special to ice
scientist.
to
no,
electric cars
and
though.
that's
I'm
so
a
dangerous
scientist. I
because
write
it's
these
no.
regulations. You
I
guys,
love you so much, and that's why I'm saying this. That's the most dangerous stuff out there because it's what's called subalveolar. It's small enough to get through your bloodstream, and that's what causes
thank
cancer and all
you.
these other
But
things.
but just to be clear, this is nothing special about electric cars. That is exactly the
Right.
same on ice and electric, right? This is just a general point about car tires. Just want to make sure we don't try and use that as an argument
Yes,
against electric because it's
absolutely,
got
Ben.
nothing to do with
Yeah, but I
electric.
want to make sure we don't oversell electric cars either.
Yeah,
That's the other.
but Gabby, you can't use
Oh
an
yeah.
argument about
By the
cars
way,
in
it's
general
still
to talk against
consumed
Tires are
electric.
energy.
on all
A-
cars, though.
and
Yeah.
and
I,
because of the traction control systems on electric cars, there is a lot less wheel spin, if any, ever. The traction control on electric cars is remarkable because of the throttle control. Therefore, there's less slip between the tire and the road. Therefore, you can have a lot less production of things like that. So please don't use
That's not
tires
true. That's
as an
not true.
argument against.
The traction on newer cars are better than older cars. That's a true statement.
Yes, and
Here's an
Absolutely.
the
here's a
traction control on
here
electric is a
I
lot
have
better than
a
ice.
I've got a true statement for you guys, and that is, I fucking love my Tesla. I've loved it for years. As soon as Mercedes' new SUV comes to America and it's full electric, I'm getting that. I will never ever buy a fucking gas car again. I enjoyed them while they lasted, but they're the past. Electric and hydrogen is the future, and that's just kind of what it is. I'm Amanda, and Michael completes me.
so.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Anyway,
the yeah. We're gonna pause on it for now because I'm gonna bring in the near future the CEO and founder of Europe's biggest battery producer, which is Northvolt, who
great.
just raised $2.75 billion yesterday for their next new gigafactory to supply to the Germans. And they are their unique value proposition is that they are the greenest battery company on the planet, more green than Tesla, where Peter was previously. And it'll
great.
be he can fill us all in ways that will make us all look incredibly
I had
unknowledgeable
to
and
change the
stupid.
subject. I was
And
getting
back
bored,
to the
Tyler.
Tyler,
original
what was
point,
the
though.
name again, please? The name of the company?
Northvolt.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
And
let's
And
back to
Tyler,
pause.
the
Well,
that's
original
let's get
point
that
about
next.
EVs
Let's get
being
that
expensive,
next
but
headline. I mean, we've been
Yeah.
beating
So
a lot of dead horses
All
today.
right,
oh
we
yeah,
got to move
but let
on.
me just
We got to
finish
move
up
on
with the
there.
solutions to climate change. By the way, fortunately, Republican Congress person, Representative Louis Gohmert, Republican from Texas, has figured out how to solve climate change. So instead of
Ugh.
implementing climate change policies, he suggested to, I think it was the head of the National Forest Service, he suggested that we change the rotation of the moon and the Earth in rather than fix the problem on Earth here.
Hey Dan,
So that's
this
all
is
we have.
Gabby. I'm
It's a
He's
very
still waiting
simple
for
gross.
you to
solution.
connect with me. You have not connected with me yet. I'm just going to say that on this platform again. You keep trying to run this climate change thing, but you need to connect with the scientists that know more, the people that regulate, if you really want change.
Well,
so we
speaking of
got
that, okay, today I'm releasing an interview I did with climate scientist Kevin Anderson. I released the first half and I finally edited the second half last night. So if you go to search on YouTube for Climate Chat Club, you can see my interviews with climate scientists, and you can learn a lot from that. And especially
Thanks,
Kevin
Dan.
Anderson, it will blow your socks off, by the way,
Okay,
because
Dan, you're gonna have a green
yeah,
tech session under Tech Newsroom, right? So it's
yeah,
nice
let's
to
do
have
that. Let's
Gabby.
do that.
Yeah, it's nice to have Gabby too. So the two of you should connect.
and
Yeah, I
Can we
should
just move
mention, by the
forward?
way,
Like,
that
can we
that
not
that
force
green
a
tech
I'm
connection
room.
done.
here,
Thanks.
Yeah,
guys?
Yeah,
Can we
don't
just
force
like can we just move
connections.
forward? Can we just move
Let's
Yeah,
move
forward,
fine.
forward.
places?
Move
Like,
on.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
briefly on that green tech room, it starts with we don't have time with the founder of we don't have time. Dan
yeah
would love you to join us. It starts on
yeah
Wednesday in 3 weeks.
yeah
I'll give
and
you the exact date in 2 seconds. So
it'll,
Dan, I hope you can make that. But
it'll be
that's
good.
when
we're going to be
is that? This the morning session? What is this?
in the afternoon. So after this on a Wednesday in the late session from 5:30 UK, we're going to be running clean tech. So I hope you can make it. Be awesome.
It's a
Oh, is
Thank you,
this on
gentleman.
the
Dan.
23rd or the 30th?
First one's on the 30th.
Yeah, I have a doctor's appointment then. Okay, well, we'll see.
But
I'll
we
see
can
what I
Yep,
do.
can do.
We can
it'll
keep
be a
going.
regular
Do
thing.
Let's
those
get
in
to
time.
our other
Thanks.
headlines, you guys.
Yeah,
Move on.
and
Okay.
the we don't have time is worth everybody's time to check out. No pun intended. And the founder's name is Ingmar, and he's incredibly passionate, and he's built an actual real solution. He does love to talk, but he's more interested in building solutions, and he built a social network to bring solutions, people who are building actual real startups and products and services to reduce climate change. And he's inviting impact investors, and it's sort of a Tinder for solutions and impact investors, and that's how he
Awesome.
said that's what he feels is his best use of the time on the planet, of the time we have left. And I thought, what Ben suggested, doing a green tech room, I thought who better to invite than Ingmar, because he's got about 100,000 people on his platform who could engage all those people, all those impact investors and solution creators could be part of the conversation. We could do it every day, honestly. It could be its own room every day. Yeah.
Tyler, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to, because I know this is probably somewhat showing up in your head, when are you going to be looking for unicorns that are coming out of LATAM?
It's a good question. To me, when geographies develop, they develop in a very predictable way of kind of the layers of infrastructure, and the the technical layer of connectivity has to come
Got
in a
it.
strong way. And then after that, and by the way, the Elon Musk's Starlink plays an interesting role in accelerating that kind of geographically around the planet to the places that were kind of lower on the list. And then you've got the next layer above that, is you start getting the fundamental products and services that allow for exchange of money, digitization, of money. And that's the fintechs, essentially. And then the fintechs come in, and once the fintechs come in, then you get other products and services that build on top of that, and each layer enables an even bigger layer on top of it. And then you start seeing the unicorns, and the opportunity for unicorns around then, which is Africa's right at that layer where the fintech is starting to come in. And that's why, to me, that's the most interesting time to enter. And yeah, South America is not far behind it, actually. You're starting to see the earliest indications of some fintechs and popping off some early unicorns in South America. And yeah, it's going to get really interesting very soon.
Oh, Tyler,
Thank
Yes,
I
you.
just tweet a new China law against overseas data transfer
I
with
got it right
punishment.
here. South China
Yeah.
Morning Post. Let's do
Have
it,
to be
Jill.
careful when you're in China, babe.
Okay. China's new data security law pushes back on U.S. jurisdiction. Um, China's new data security law promises steep punishments for unapproved overseas data transfers. China passes first law on data security amid crackdown on country's big tech and rivalry with the U.S. Wait a minute, didn't they say the U.S. was way out of line and evil for doing exactly these kinds of things? Law The law sanctions hefty fines for unauthorized data exports and sets a legal framework for establishing a data market. And indeed, you are beginning to see the beginnings of the whole sovereign cloud situation. And this is not just about China and the US. You're going to see every country, in the same way that countries want to have their own unicorns, countries are realizing they need to control the data going in and out of their borders the same way they control people going in and out of their borders, and the way they control money
Yep.
going in and out of their borders. And that's where you're going to see this word called sovereign clouds is going to be big in about 2 years from now. And you heard it here first, where I heard it a year ago from a friend of mine who works at Amazon Web Services, who's scared shitless about the European states not wanting Amazon to be the provider of their government's services in cloud. So, for example, the French tax agency and the Swedish traffic agency are using Amazon, and that's an American tech company, and they've got access to that data. And then they think, wait a minute, why are we using an American tech company to hold all of this and enable all of this government agency data? We should have our own government, cloud, our own sovereign cloud, and that's what's going to happen. And so in Sweden, secretly, it's not. I don't even think most Swedes know about it yet. They're starting to put into place, because Swedes are very educated on data and the use of data and the importance of data, that all government agencies, from the tax agency, the parks, the schools, any public service, any public agency, the migration agency, Migrationsverket, the tax agency, Skatteverket, the traffic agency, Trafikverket, all need to be on their own sovereign cloud. No more foreign company clouds. And at the same time, you're seeing Huawei Cloud, Alibaba Clouds trying to push big into Europe, into Africa, into South America. And in the same way that 5G was a potential vulnerability of data extraction, so is these clouds. And these governments are starting to realize this. So why risk it? Why not build your own clouds in sovereign clouds? You have your own unicorns, you got your own data, you got your own CBDC, and you're starting to see the breakdown of the whole globalistic structure, and it's all going to become all nationalistic. It's just a matter of simple fact, and that's what's happening. Control, 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 control. Data is important. We need to control it.
Can I provide another update on Nigeria?
Sure.
U.S. just issued a statement saying that they need to not to stop threatening their citizens on the Twitter brand. I copied you in on the
Okay.
Video of the
I
U.S.
see it right
statement,
now. I got it.
but now all the top people are saying, okay, we're going to let our citizens back on Twitter.
From Nigeria, I see the tweet. I just retweeted it from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, and it's a video, and it says, "Dear Jack and Twitter, please don't fall for the antics of the FGN." I assume that's something about Nigeria, FGN. On this ongoing war, you have the upper hand, as the U.S. government has issued a warning on Twitter ban in Nigeria. Visa restrictions, aid cuts, military hardware suspension will follow soon. Don't be like Facebook. That's an interesting tweet. And I guess the
If you
federal
read
government.
down in the replies,
Mm-hmm.
they're tweeting the replies of a government official making U-turns on their statements to ban Twitter. Now they're all going on Twitter saying, "Okay, we've changed our policy in our mind."
Why are they changing their mind on the Twitter ban?
I told you, someone has powers. I don't know what's going on, but someone has powers, and they're influencing Nigeria and their politics. This is unfolding as we know.
I'll tell you this. I just got a DM from somebody who really knows and is clearly listening to the conversation, and is who I know very well. I know the person, and they know their stuff. And the DM they just sent me is, this is what happens when the big guns are being pulled by the U.S. government. So apparently the government, the U.S. is influencing Nigeria not to ban Twitter. And I imagine it's because there's money involved, aid or something, or who knows. But it'll be interesting to find out, and that'd be a great story for a tech journalist to get into. If you know a tech journalist looking for a good story, Sylvan, what's up?
Yeah, I suspect that it's got to do with the supply of military to the Nigerian government.
Military aid. Okay, can you say more?
No, but I think it's hidden in the way those responses are couched, and also in the sacking of the advisor.
I was just told by somebody who appears to be, well, certainly African, probably Nigerian, that the FGN is the federal government of Nigeria. Thank you for that. Mugalulu is the name. What a cool name, Mugalulu. Thank you for that.
I got some tech news.
Go for it, JT.
Hey, Tyler, could I circle back? You're done. I'd like to circle back briefly on the sovereign cloud issue.
Sure. Or up to you, JT, if you want him to go first, or go ahead.
No, I can wait, definitely.
Just very quickly.
Yeah,
just very quickly. I would think that if I were looking at cybersecurity architecture at a nation state level, the last thing I'd want to do is concentrate everything in a sovereign cloud environment, and I might want to distribute it so as to minimize vulnerability. Would this not be a ripe target for nation state cyber terrorists? This is John. I'm done.
I'm sorry, I missed that because I'm DMing. Could you please repeat that?
Oh, wouldn't nation states like those in the EU who are requiring sovereign clouds, as that movement gains steam, wouldn't that provide a very focused target for nation state cyber terrorism?
You got an interesting point there, John. Who are you planning to attack?
Here, Tyler?
Yes,
well,
Frost.
it's already underway.
Go ahead, Frost.
So, John, it depends, right? If the sovereign cloud is being hosted, and where it's being hosted, and by who it's being hosted, then I mean, of course, any cloud is vulnerable to a cyber attack. But then again, a lot of these sovereign clouds, if they're being hosted, for example, by Amazon Web Services or one of the large U.S. companies, then subject to the Cloud Act, they're also available to the United States agencies, and hence, invade sovereign identities, invade the sovereign data laws. So I mean, there's a little bit of a thin line there in terms of cyber attack and sovereign cloud and secret cloud. So I think what we should try and address for these states is to develop secret clouds of their own and host them within their own nations, by their own tech companies, and probably look at encrypted blockchain solutions going in and making them less vulnerable to cyber attacks. Then that's
just a couple of thoughts for us on the back of that. I would say that any cloud except Bitcoin is susceptible to cyber attack, because Bitcoin has been under constant cyber attack since it started, and none of them have succeeded. There's something a little unique about it when you look into the details. The other thing is, I think this whole sovereign business is just in a totally opposite direction to what the world needs to do to solve our bigger problems. It's just kids getting upset in the playground with each other about who owns what and who's got the sweeties. It's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, I think we all know that, but maybe we don't. I don't know. It's a little crazy that people are getting this uppity about what's going on in their walls, when really we're all on the same ship here trying to solve the same problems.
Over to you, JT.
Yeah, so I was just reading that Google released a new AR feature called Places. Essentially, it's a visual search tool.
Yep.
I just tweeted it out.
I got it, and I just retweeted it to all of our friends who follow the Twitter account TNATW. Thank you for that.
By the way, JT, I love your profile.
Thank you.
It's
just trying to promote
Twitter account.
the Twitter handle.
Thank you so much.
So people
I
get
saw it
confused
1
about
hour
it.
ago. Nice.
Yeah. So we're going to thank you for this, JT. It's a really interesting article about Google's AR searching and how they are in a battle with Apple. over AR search, because that is sort of the future of search. It's no longer kind of the helicopter view of the map, although you certainly will still use that view from time to time. But now you hold up your phone and look through the phone like it's a window, and it points out all of the items around you, and it has image recognition, so it knows you're looking at a Starbucks, and it knows you're looking at the Eiffel Tower, and it can tell you all about it. And it's a very augmented reality, as they call it, AR. And that will become exponentially more interesting when we no longer are using a smartphone, but an actual visor, as JT is doing. But no doubt it will have a camera on the front, so it can see out the front, but still also have a very ability to do a VR and AR simultaneously, which they call MR, mixed reality. And with that, I want to pause because we have a special guest on the stage. Tom Chavez, welcome to Tech News Around the World. And it looks like you've got, my God, 148 followers. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
You're
Good to be here.
growing fast. So tell us, if you would, what is going on with data in the world today?
Well, it's a tumultuous time, right? Because we have all of these heightened regulations now that governments are putting into place to attend to matters of consumer data. And then you have the gorillas, the Facebooks, the Amazons, Googles, increasingly under attack and caught flat-footed trying to do something about it. So it's a sporty time for data right now.
And I guess that means also it's kind of an opportunistic time if someone plays their cards right.
I think so. I mean, my sense is that the pendulum is swinging. We're moving from a time and a place when most consumers were happy to trade off security and stewardship of data for convenience. I think that the majority of most consumers in most places will continue with that posture, but it's the smaller group of consumers who care a lot about this and the governments who are making moves. Those are the folks who can burn the barn down. And I think, to your point, the opportunity is for companies who are paying more attention to this. In fact, I spoke to a customer the other day who told us we want to be the anti-Facebook, right? So you have companies seizing advantage and wanting to show up as great stewards of consumer data. They want to show that they're doing the right thing. That's an opportunity. And then for tech providers who can build infrastructure to help those companies get it right, another huge opportunity.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the way social media companies handle people's data today?
I am not. Look, I believe in privacy. I also, there's a lot of talk these days about privacy as an essential human right, and I certainly agree with that. But just from
that was Apple's big announcement recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Steve Jobs continues to exert his influence from the grave, right? When you have Apple now showing up and instituting these new policies, which we can certainly talk about. But I think it's an opportunity for companies to get it right. And look, I think the large social media companies, I'm not going to go on a rant here, but I think it's safe to say that too many of them have really taken liberties with our data, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important just to be aware. Mm-hmm.
And what should governments do in response?
Well, look, we started with GDPR in the EU, and that was sort of the match out the window, right? So GDPR was the first regulation passed in 2016. Now we have California, CCPA. Wait. As soon as we thought we had CCPA, there's CPRA, which was just approved in the recent election in California, which is the son or daughter of the original legislation in California. You have Virginia. Colorado just passed the Privacy Act. Brazil has their own code. The Japanese, the Singaporeans, everybody's on the move, right? And starting to create their own codes. And it's not, there's no global standard. For a time, I think a lot of us thought that GDPR could sort of emerge as a global standard or template. That doesn't really seem to be taking root. So it creates an awful lot of complexity, right? Companies who are not, and who, there are privacy experts and we love their help, but I think we're operating in a space right now that's really long on rules, right? And lots of lawyerly legislative things going on, but it's short on tools, right? If you're a company, what do I do, right? How do I navigate this game of whack-a-mole with all of these different rules and codes in different jurisdictions going on?
And so, tell us about your company, Catch, and how that plays into this.
Well, actually, to that point, we want to offer the tooling that helps companies get it right. We're fortunate to have a team of privacy experts who, you can have the broad stroked idea and policy of privacy, but how do you actually enact it, right? And the analogy we kind of like to use here is there was a time, probably too few of us remember it, but there was a time when ads were kind of artisanally sort of stitched into the HTML of a website one by one.
I
And whenever you
remember
wanted to
those
change
days
the
very
ad,
fondly.
you were, right?
Yep.
So crazy times. We don't even, but, and then the ad server was born, right? What did the ad server
Wait. What?
from
Commission
DoubleClick, another
Junction, or
company,
what was the first skyscraper site? Affiliate
right?
Junction or something?
Oh my
Commission
God.
Junction.
Commission
Yeah, it was
Junction.
Commission Junction.
Oh my God! Flashbacks. Yeah.
CJ, you got to do this for
Yes.
Yeah.
CJ.
CJ. Oh my God.
We got some old schoolers in the
Oh yeah.
session. Yes. Way back, right? That's the Wayback Machine. And of course we look at that today and we say, oh my God, that was crazy. That was stupid. Why did we, how did that even happen? Well,
It was,
that was just
but
the state of things.
it was ads with no data. Like you were showing ads on your blog that had no relevancy to anyone visiting, essentially.
You were carpet bombing the universe, hoping somebody
would click. Yeah.
Would swim by and see your ad and do something about it. Yeah.
I made a fucking penny today. Someone clicked on my ad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But pennies is big dollars per ad, actually, on a CPM basis. So
not bad. Yeah.
So look, I mean, DoubleClick and others came in with the ad server and made it programmatic, right? We're not stitching an individual ad into the the nuts and bolts of an individual web page. We're creating this abstraction layer effectively between who's looking at the ad, what's on the page, and creating this wild kind of dynamism, right? That allowed us to fly different ads into different pages, different moments, depending on who we thought was there. So with privacy, there's a similar opportunity, right? Where we have the opportunity to make privacy programmatic. And once you make it programmatic,
oh, hello,
right?
I got you. There it is.
That's where we're at. That's where we're headed. And it's happening now, as has been said, the future is already here, it just isn't evenly distributed yet. So some companies are starting to deploy Catch's technology to be able to navigate those different, okay, is this a user from Germany? Is this a user from California? Right?
Hello.
Being able to understand, that's right. Who's looking at this at my page right now?
Yeah. Do I need to be mindful of GDPR with this user? Well, this person's from, Botswana. It doesn't matter. Okay, next. And then, okay, this guy's from, the Netherlands. Okay, it gets very complicated.
Wait, and the plot thickens. Is it Tyler? Has Tyler opted out of use of data for targeting, but is okay with using his data for analytics and recommendations, right? So just as you fine-tuned the ad to Tyler, now we fine-tuned the privacy posture and the things the company does to exactly this individual user.
That's brilliant.
That's what Catch has built, and that's what we're in the early stages of deploying. It's exciting, right? Because
that's going to be huge.
Yeah, well, we're excited about it.
Yeah, as you
we're
should
building
be. Yeah, that's
lots of companies
fantastic.
signing up now for it. Look, I think, and to that earlier point about the anti-Facebook, it's also a technology build out, right? So you got your early pioneers at the beginning, and we're grateful for them because they jump on board early and they see it, they want it, they deploy it. And then there's this larger kind of conversation that needs to unfold in sessions like this one, right? Where I think more people start to understand, okay, this isn't just me being bludgeoned with a lot of rules by overzealous lawyers. I talk to CEOs who deploy this and they tell they say, Tom, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but listen, privacy is not my favorite thing, right?
Yeah. No,
I don't want to spend a lot of time
it's like the cleaning the toilets of owning, doing a startup. So it's like
yeah.
the least fun aspect of doing this stuff, and you're making it removing a huge headache. Um, and I'm wondering though. I think it's brilliant. I think you're going to make a killing. I'm wondering what is your biggest challenges or frictions between now and buying your own private island in Thailand. Like some crazy idiot might do.
Or Scotland. I hear the islands in Scotland are cheap. There's so many of them. Look, I mean, our biggest.
Thailand's
It's pretty
last count
cold
14,
there.
Tyler wants a neighbor.
1,400 in Thailand, 800 in Burma. I don't know what Scotland's got, but how are those Scottish beaches?
I've actually never been, but I hear they're very craggy. So look, I mean, the biggest challenge here is just getting in. It's a persuasion communication challenge, right? I mean, I think people, as I started to mention, are just a little beleaguered, right, by all of the talk and the rules, the laws, and the codes. And you read these articles. Oh my gosh, here's Apple changing the game, right? Throwing fingerprinting out the window.
Yep.
Google. We thought,
literally this week, as we speak, is one of the craziest weeks, is it not?
It's so like, listen, you can't. It's impossible to believe how this just stacks up, right? Because Apple, deprecated the third-party cookie some time ago. Google follows. We thought we're kind of in a safe place, and then, as you mentioned, Apple this week, now blocking IP addresses, right, in Safari, which kills the whole possibility of fingerprinting. Which is this kind of workaround that people had started to implement.
I mean, it was 48 hours ago they made the announcements of what's coming in the new operating system with the mail obfuscation and all of these Apple's going VPN. Buck wild. Yeah, all of this stuff. I mean, literally in the past 48 hours, it's gotten very interesting, right?
No, and then like you mentioned with the burner emails, right? For people listening, Apple's going to introduce the ability to sort of create a site-specific burner email. Now, okay, maybe that sounds good, but what a lot of folks in the ecosystem started to do is say, well, Tom's email is a safe hook, right? That's a safe key that we can use to safely identify him. Now with burner emails, that's out the window. Right?
Bye-bye. Yeah, aren't there? But there's clever ways around that. I heard. There's ways where there's wills. There's ways. People will come up with interesting hacks, I think. But I want to turn it over to a couple friends who are DMing me with questions. I think Michelle might have a good one. I think Jeff also might have a good one. Are you cool with some rando questions from folks on the stage here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, Tom. I just had a quick question in terms of, because you mentioned programmatic privacy. So is the plan to actually integrate with those players, or it's going to be a whole ecosystem on its own? I'm just trying to understand the connection for users giving consent.
Beautiful question. And the short answer is it can't be a whole ecosystem unto its own. It can't turn into sort of a parallel internet, right? We have to, our approach is to stitch ourselves into the existing applications and websites as they exist today, right? And what that underscores then for us, Michelle, is the importance of creating the integrators, connectors, and adapters, right, that allow our systems to propagate privacy instructions to all the places where they need to go in a set it and forget it, deploy once, comply everywhere kind of architecture, right? So to give an example, if I opt out of a website, there's a great example. One of our customers takes privacy very seriously, and they were honoring opt-outs for their property. Now, they have an email newsletter. When that newsletter goes out to customers in Germany who had already opted out, that's a 5-alarm freakout, right? Because those customers are saying to our customer who comes back and says, well, that's the email. I'm using MailChimp, right, for the email newsletter, and MailChimp hasn't received the opt-out. I sent them the opt-out, but they haven't done anything with it. So The customer, their customer listens to that and says, hey, that sounds like a personal problem, right? I don't care. I opted, and by the way, under the law and the codes of GDPR, the processor, the company who receives the signal from that individual consumer who's requesting an opt-out is obligated to enforce and enact those privacy instructions to all of their service providers, right? So you have this kind of chaining and propagation problem that defines the privacy challenge for the ecosystem. And our job then is to create the technology. Don't do it manually, right? Don't send an email. Actually, create the APIs and enabling infrastructure to send those instructions to all the places they need to go, right? So that's not, and that's on us. That's not somebody else's problem, right? We're not going to give you a bucket of tar and a bulldozer and say, hey, go pave your own path through the jungle to that service provider you're working with to get privacy right. We're showing up with what you can think of as kind of a middleware solution that just makes it easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I would even maybe advise, obviously, if it's aligned with your company strategy, to maybe work with the large players, because a lot of advertisers at the moment would like to work with consent management platform. So because they don't have
100%.
the bandwidth internally, and that would definitely be, especially in Europe.
No, it's advertisers and publishers, right? As we like to say, if you've got a website, you have a privacy challenge. You might not be aware of it yet, but
Right.
certainly large advertisers, right? We read about Procter and Gamble's troubles in China recently, where they're using fingerprinting and they got snagged by the regulators there. By the way, not a great thing for Procter and Gamble in terms of their brand to be, to have that stain on it. But consumers
Yeah,
look at that and say, that's creepy. Why are you doing that?
yeah, the timing couldn't be better though, because shit's about to get crazy with all of the sensors and facial recognition and audio devices, and it's just going to get harder and harder and harder by the every week, every month, and staying compliant with all of this stuff. As the governments are now just starting to realize they need to start slapping regulation craziness all over this stuff. And your solution, you're in the great spot at the right time. I bet your investors are very happy. Jeff, you had a question.
Yeah. So I have two. Speaking of investors, $23 million. I think the idea of automating privacy and data compliance is a fascinating one. So my first question would be, what do you plan to do with the money? And then my second question would be, you mentioned these disparate privacy regimes. In your view, obviously it's been difficult for Congress to legislate on this. The politics are difficult, but what would, in your view, a solid federal approach look like if there were one?
Oh boy. Well, so to speak quickly to the first question, it's game on, right? It's happening now, and the point of the $23 million is for us to scale up. We spent a lot of time in the first stage of our company building a better mousetrap. It's a problem that we think we understood pretty well just based on our prior experience. So we really kind of just went to the shed and built. Now it's time to sell, right? And so with the investment that we've taken, we're staffing up meaningfully in our sales and marketing and services functions. It's been a very technical team so far, and it's just what the market requires, right? I can't define the timing of how these markets kind of unfold. They unfold on their own clip, and we realized that, okay, it's game on and we got to go fast. To the second question, look, I think that's probably above my pay grade. We are fortunate on my team to have a privacy luminary named Elisa Hutnick, and I sit and I learn from her what the codes and what they actually mean and specify. I'm an engineer who operationalizes privacy, so I'm going to proceed carefully here. But I think, to answer your question, if there were a federal standard that hewed possibly a little bit more to GDPR, if there are folks who've spent any time looking at GDPR, it's extremely complete. It's probably a little too overwrought, right? My favorite example is the right to explainability. You have the right under the letter of GDPR to go to a website and say, well, I received this toe fungus ad from you. Explain to me why you sent it to me. Oh my God, right? What do I do with that? It's nice in theory, but perhaps a little overdone. So simpler, more important things like the right to deletion, right, the right to be forgotten, the portability right. Give me my data. I want my data now, please. Those make a lot of sense. And so I think if there were a federal standard, it would probably, and look, California, Virginia, everyone's rolling their own right now, which is scary, right? And you might think that well, they all kind of correspond to each other, and in fact, there's no central steel thread that runs through them, right? The way Colorado treats service providers versus third parties, very tricky. New York, the pending legislation, is an opt-in law, right? Whereas California, Colorado, Virginia, they're all opt-out laws. So there's a lot of differences there. And I think the opportunity for a federal standard is to kind of, snap to what's mostly working, right? And it's not to just follow the herd. Well, we got GDPR. That's good enough. Let's go for it. I don't think it would be a copy of GDPR, but it would be an an opt-out regulation. It would have broad enforcement of things like portability and deletion. It would enforce, I think, the requirements for controllers, i.e., consumer-facing companies. In the parlance of GDPR, we call those controllers. Controllers have to get it right, but with a propagation, right, or a requirement for service providers. Back to my example, right? You can't just get it right in the four walls of your business. Your email provider has to receive the signal and do the thing. So a federal standard would include that kind of requirement. And from there, like I said, kind of above my pay grade, but hopefully that's helpful.
Tom, there's a headline here that came out today, actually just a few hours ago. Amazon facing potential $500 million fine over EU privacy. It says Amazon.com could be fined more than $425 million under EU's privacy law, the Wall Street Journal reported today, citing people familiar with the matter. I wonder, you probably know what this is about. And is it relevant to what you're doing? We see a lot of these now where these big tech companies and the EU is just essentially just punishing them with fines, really. They're not, and that's quite a big one, to be honest. But even for Amazon, 425 million to Amazon, probably not a big deal. And see you 6 months later with another new one, knock yourself out. I don't, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are when you see headlines like that.
Yeah, look, we're all aware of it and paying attention to it. It's still a little suspenseful, right? Because it's in Luxembourg and they're about to file it, but they haven't disclosed many of the particulars, like the nature of the infringements that they're calling out for Amazon. So I guess my takeaway, by the way, it's in Luxembourg, which, remember, once upon a time in high school, we had to go and study those maps. I think Luxembourg is 1/10 the size of Rhode Island or something. It's a tiny little country, right?
Yeah,
and so it reminds
as an American, I'm not even sure it's a real country, but go ahead.
Americans are regular illiterate at maps.
That's right. Yeah, you need a different kind of map to zoom in and see it. And so the takeaway here for me is, okay, Luxembourg is about to slap the mighty Amazon with a $500 million fine. To your point, $500 million for Amazon is like the tiniest of snacks, or it's a flea, it's a mosquito,
lunch money,
it's nothing. Yeah, reminds me of not too long ago, Facebook paid $5 billion to the FTC to settle up their acknowledged violation of the consent decree that the FTC had put on them, I don't know, 4 years ago. So these are, the gorillas can't afford to pay these fines, but they start stacking up, right? We start with Luxembourg. What's Ireland going to do, right? Ireland's on the move. And you go through and you look at all of these data protection authorities in these different countries, just as you have all, this patchwork of regulations in different states in the US, any single one of them isn't an extinction level event for Amazon or Facebook or Google, but the drums are beating, right? And as they start to accumulate in frequency and size, they're not these aren't irritants. These aren't mosquito bites anymore. These become really, I think, extinction level problems for those companies. And by the way, Apple, as I did this last week, Apple does a thing. They change the game, but it's not just like, the gods on Olympus clashing it out. It reverberates, right? All companies now, whether we like it or not, get knocked around a little bit too, and it creates this whole level of complexity that we have to conquer. I am I'm not smart enough to prognosticate, tell you exactly how it all ends, but it's going to be a very exciting movie.
Cool. Michelle, go ahead. You had another question. Michelle, you there? She just DM'd it to me. She deserves the credit for it because it's a better question than I would have come up with. She says, do you think one day Google or other big players will consider launching a content management platform to help the existing websites in their ecosystem?
Look, certainly. I mean, Google will try anything, and it's really to their credit that they continue to just innovate as they do. I think when it comes to the nuts and bolts of the content management system from Google, as with their ad serving, right? There's this problem that they have now with the state's attorneys general coming after them and showing. There's a great paper by Dina Srinivasan. I urge people to read it. It's not one you can just curl up with a hot mug of cocoa in front of the fire and read easily. It's work, but she chronicles all of the shenanigans and anti-competitive things Google has done with its ad stack. So if you look at what a content management system from Google would look like, I think there's huge Fox henhouse issues there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a website using Google's content management system, eyes wide open, read the fine print to understand how they're going to be collecting data from the use of their CMS and flying it back into the mothership.
Very cool. I'm with you. Thank you for taking the questions. And please hang out for a second. We've got 15 minutes remaining and a bunch of headlines to jump into. And undoubtedly another data-related one might pop up, or another article that if you just hang out for a second, if you don't mind, if you got 15
Absolutely.
minutes. Yeah? Cool.
Yes.
And so JT just shared another really interesting one about AIs from Facebook. And AI now can emulate text style in images in one shot using just a single word, and you basically have to see this to understand what I'm talking about. It's very, very cool technology, though. You got to see it to understand what I'm saying. You have to go to the website and look at the article. It's from Facebook AI's team, and I'm just retweeted him so you can see it for yourself. Thank you for that one, JT. Kim Jong-un of North Korea calls K-pop, Korean pop music, a vicious cancer. In the new culture war, South Korean music, movies, and dramas are winning the hearts of young North Koreans. Their influence is seen as a threat to Mr. Kim's grip on society.
He's finally went too far, Tyler.
Cross the line. That's
Yep.
it.
It's going to be BTS versus KJ.
How did he know if he's not watching it?
He's watching it.
Good point.
Oh,
Do you
he's
see
watching
hair?
it.
He's definitely watching it.
He's all in it.
Can we ping him in here and ask him?
No, he's just simple.
For
us, can you make that happen? No,
this is just pure simple jealousy. Mark my words, Kim Jong-un is going to start his own damn K-pop band in the next 3 weeks.
Oh.
And it's going to be the hottest thing in North Korea.
Because
Mark my words. Yeah, everyone's going to be. You think BTS fans go crazy when they take the stage?
I have no affiliations with North Korea.
Yeah.
K-pop concerts are off the chain. I went to one about
Facts.
10 years ago.
Wait till you see North Korean pop.
They're literally on the chain.
That her friend was hosting this concert or having a concert, and everyone had choreographed matching. I'm talking the audience You know,
Oh
every
yeah.
10,
Oh
15
yeah, we're
minutes
talking
we
North.
had like new
You think? Hang
headbands
on.
and
You think
wands
South
and
Koreans wear
Hey,
uniforms? Wait till you
Lakeisha, that
see the
happens
North
in Japan
Koreans.
too.
Wait till you see the North Koreans
the
in their
military
uniforms.
uniforms.
Oh, you've got no idea.
Yeah, their uniforms are they're mandatory.
Yeah, and
Lakeisha's right.
yep.
I don't know if you've seen the mass games. I think that's what she's talking about. It's not quite a K-pop concert, but I mean it really is something. So maybe the melding of those things could be explosive.
Every year here in Hollywood, where I live, we have this place here called the Hollywood Bowl, and every year there's a K-pop con, and all the biggest K-pop groupers of the year come, and it's always K-pop concerts are really really fun, but it's really interesting because every time this K-pop con happens over here at the Hollywood Bowl, these fans are like sports team fans. Like they all come with uniforms and choreography, and they have biases, and they kind of compete against each other, and it's very very interesting to kind of see it firsthand how it all goes down. I remember when K-pop first started really hitting hard in America. It was a group that a lot of you who, if you're new K-pop fans, you probably have never heard of these people. But this is back in the day of like Super Junior and Girls' Generation and things like this, IU, and kind of the modern day pioneers of K-pop. And I remember when Girls' Generation released a song called G, and this song just like
Oh,
swept through.
that
this
song was such a bop.
that song swept through like all the American kind of pop culture spots, and it wasn't yet big enough that everyone knew about it or anything. But if you were in any way connected to pop culture, that song is really where it all kind of started in America.
So speaking
Remember
of,
when K-pop went
yep,
used TikTok to influence the Trump rally?
yep,
Where
BTS. Yeah. Speaking of kind of pop culture, Dubai. Here's a headline that I just tweeted out. I just want to double check that I did about. I'm. This might have been. I just tweeted it now. So Dubai hotel launches fully equipped gaming rooms. Stay and play, they call it, with the gamer staycation. Are you looking for the ultimate place to game in Dubai? Whether you need to focus for a big tournament, or being one of these big e-gaming athletes as you are, or you're always wanted to dedicate a weekend entirely to gaming, we have the perfect spot for you in June. Rove Hotels has just revealed Rove Gamers Gamer Caves, they're calling them, the region's first ever hotel rooms designed exclusively for gaming. The rooms will be available for booking from Tuesday, June 15th, and will be decked out with the latest setup powered by Razer. Stay and play rates starting at whatever Dubai's currency is, 250 per night. The gamer caves are available at two Rove hotels in Dubai, Rove Downtown and Rove, the other one, Rove at the Park. So go ahead and book yourself a gamer cave. What I'm calling it now. This is not the last we've seen of this. I bet this turns into something.
Oh, for sure.
And
Rove Hotels, like Carl Rove.
yep, like Carl Rove. Yeah, Rove.
This is smart.
Exactly. Yep. And maybe this headline, maybe you could combine this next headline with it, and we'll end on this one. This is from the Washington Post. A fully vaccinated cruise ship, a really really big cruise ship,
Yes.
like one of those massive motherfucking cruise ships. It's like a city on the water. A fully vaccinated big ass cruise set sail in the Caribbean.
What kind of cruise ship?
A
The big
fully
ass
va-
motherfucking
A
kind.
big ass. Can you?
We can't end on this note, Tyler. This
yeah,
is like crazy.
No,
Finish
no,
the
we're good.
headline. I mean,
fully
we.
fully fully vaccinated is the key words here. So everyone's fully vaccinated, double stabbed, cruise set sail in the Caribbean,
Double stack.
and
Oh boy.
you can finish the rest of the headline. Now
It's like. Oh, go
passengers are
ahead.
now being tested positive for COVID, and you know what happens next. What I'm
Hmm.
thinking is, why don't we turn that thing into a cruise cave, gamer cave cruise, and
Ooh.
turn those little
Oh.
cabins into gamer cabins, and
It's
Gamify
you
this
can,
cruise.
Yeah.
It's like the last scene of a horror movie, right? You think that the bad guy is dead, and then,
Dun
people
dun
set
dun.
sail, and then all of a
A
sudden he's
3 hour
back.
tour. Yeah.
I want there to be a leak. I want there
See,
to be a leak on the ship, and then like a couple of sharks happen to get in,
And then the
and then it
Russians
just turns
hack
okay.
it.
into a full.
Why are people going on cruises? Can
I
somebody
don't know.
please explain that to me?
That's a
Aren't
Justin,
we
good
over that
question.
as humanity?
Justin. I've been in on Carnival since it was at $7, so I want them to continue.
Justin, you're too young to experience this.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
luxurious
You
cruise
talking
is
about
really
Justin?
nice. My mother loved it.
Yeah.
It is.